Yeah, as you know, Skillspire is a mission-based boot camp, and we regularly conduct workshops. Um, but this time we decided to do a Python more hands-on workshop. Um, and this is the first time we're doing something like this, so we're pretty excited about the turnout. But yeah, with that being said, couple tips. This workshop is going to be for a few hours, right? It's going to be between like 5 and 6 hours, depending on how we do with time. And it's going to be broken into several blocks. So I would really encourage all of you to stay until the very end to get the most out of this. The ultimate goal from the workshop is for you to learn Python skills, so that you can create projects that you can put on your portfolio. We really hope that this does take you and help you advance to that next step in your career. But yeah, enough small talk, enough of me rambling on. Let me introduce our instructors. So first, I'll start off with our TA, Ethan Jordan. Ethan, you want to say a few words, and then we can go to Ghazal. Okay,
Hi, Ethan. Yeah.
we'll give Ethan a couple of minutes. I think Ghazal's here. Ghazal, do you want to introduce yourself while Ethan is getting his audio in order?
Sure. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah. Hi everyone. My name is Gazelle, and I'll be your instructor for this workshop. My background is in software engineering, and I've been full stack web developer instructor for Skillspire for a year. And myself, I currently work as a software engineer for the one of the Pierce County. Yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
Okay. Thank you for that, Ghazal. Ethan, do you want to try again? You were muted, I think. Let me see if I can. Yeah. Yep, there you go. You should be able to talk now. Okay. I think Ethan's having some audio issues. While he fixes that, I think we can pretty much move on to the workshop. Ghazal, how does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, whenever he gets audio, we can like let him take a small break and then introduce himself. But he's going to be with us for the duration of the workshop. But yeah, with that being said, I'll hand it over to Ghazal.
Thank you, Fadel. Okay, so as you guys know, this workshop is based off of Python, also HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So, for this workshop, there's no requirement for installing any software because it would take up a bunch of our time. So instead, we'll just use online editors. Um, okay, let's get started. Let me share my screen and I'll share real quick the outline. Um, and I'm sorry if my Teams is being slow or I might drop off accidentally because I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe my internet is a little bit slow today. So if that's the case, just any of you can let me know. Okay. Okay. Can anyone tell me if you guys can see my screen or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So as Fadil mentioned, we divided the workshop into chunks. So from the instructor part, I divided into my own 3 chunks. So that in the first session, we'll be learning HTML basics. And in the second session, we'll continue on that and add CSS and JavaScript, and we can build a simple resume. And I know that there are 3 different groups in this workshop who are newbies, for the coding, and who have a little bit of experience, and there are some there who are proficient. So if you don't know some of the words, don't worry, I'll explain. So in the third session, we'll start with the Python basics, and we'll solve few exercises using Python language. Okay, and okay, let me see. Okay, so with our first session will be from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. So basically 1 hour, starting now, in case some other people are in a different time zone. Okay, so for the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, we will be using an editor called CodePen. I will give you guys a minute to open it up. It's called, I'll paste the link on the chat as well. Okay. Okay, and then, yeah, give you guys a minute.
Codepen.io.
And you don't have to sign up or log in. You can just see on the left side, it says start coding. So you can just click on that, and it will pop up. The page will pop up that looks like this. So it will be a blank. Now, yeah, let me give you another minute to get started. I think there are more people joining. Fadel, are you still here?
Yes.
Okay, how do we want to do that? Because there are people joining late, and I left the website link on the chat. I'm not sure if I should start over, or we should wait a few minutes until everyone joins. What do you think? Fadel, are you talking? Okay, yeah. Okay, let me just admit the people who are joining, and let them know which ID we'll be using. Okay, so for whoever joined, we'll be starting with HTML, and please, I pasted the website link, the IDE link on the chat. Use that, and then we can just start utilizing it to do some coding. Okay, so a quick thing about HTML for those who don't know. HTML is a hypertext markup language, which is used to structure the website. So I found a really interesting picture that explains the difference between HTML and CSS. So as you can see, we use HTML just to structure the website, and when we add CSS, it actually brings up some styles to the website structure. So I hope okay, everyone is on the same board, so we can continue. Okay, so let's get started with some of the basics of HTML. The way we write structure in the website is, starting with HTML, right? There are different sections for the HTML. So I will start coding, and I if you guys can see my screen, please code along with me, and I will give some breaks so you can catch up. So the HTML consists of different sections, which is first, it consists of the HTML tag. Please pay attention to the syntax of it. The way we write the HTML tags is that the name of the tag is wrapped around these less than or greater signs. So this is opening bracket, right? Opening HTML element, and then this is the closing part of it. If you pay attention, there is a slash between you actually specify the HTML element name. So the first thing is for you to write the HTML tag. Now, you might not have the CodePen.io, this editor, set up the way that I have it. In order to change that, you can click on the button next to the sign up to the left of it, where there's a box thing. If you click on it, you can change the view. So I think the best view would be this first one, that how we have the editors on the left and then the actual window on the right side, just so we can see what our website looks like while we are developing it. Okay, so please.
Can I ask you a question? Well,
Sure.
I'm afraid that I just joined a little late, so I don't know what kind of editor you're using. Well, I just went to the Replit actually.
Yeah,
But
I
I'm
think I
thinking that
pasted
we
it on
need
the.
to use some specific editor for this class, right?
Um, the editor that I will be using is called CodePen.io. I'm pasting it on.
You're muted. We can't hear you.
Sorry about that. Yeah, we'll be using CodePen.io. I pasted it on the chat. But if anyone has their own editors, you can feel free to use that. This CodePen.io is the most simplest one that I found. But yeah, can you guys see the chat? Are you able to access the editor?
Yes.
Okay, sure.
I am in the editor. Should I sign up or should I
No,
just?
there's no need to sign up. If you go on the left side, I can show that again. Um, yeah, I think just there should be a button on the left side that says Start Coding. You can just click on that, and then it will take you to a page like this.
I don't have the page that you showed me. Instead, I am in the current screen actually.
Okay.
I just went to the untitled page that we are working on. No, I don't have that page.
Okay. Okay. So you can remove the. Okay. Let me repaste the website then. You could just remove the pen at the end of the link, and then it would take you to there. But yeah.
Should press the button Start Coding.
Yeah, just press that button.
Okay. Thank you. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, I think 1 second. Yeah, I have it here. Okay. So yeah. Okay, so as if we got the HTML tag part, now inside the HTML, we'll have two different sections. One is called head, and so we will code that the same way as we did the HTML with the opening tag and then the closing tag. Okay, and then there's, as I say, there are two parts in the HTML, right? And after the head comes the body. And I'll explain those in a detail in a second. Okay, so as you can see, the HTML covers everything that's in the website. The head part will contain the information about the about the website. For example, the title of the website. Okay, and just name it as a first website. So inside the body is where you actually can see the content. Okay, so let's start with introducing some of the HTML elements. So I'll start with the, let's say, headings. Okay, so what the headings are actually to display the text. So if you type in an opening bracket H1 and then the closing bracket, and for now you're not seeing anything on the right side, and it's normal because we didn't add any content, the actual structure content. So if you type in something inside the H1 HTML element tag, we'll be able to see it on the right side. So let's just say this is a heading 1. Okay, can you guys see it on the right side that this H1 is actually getting displayed because we are putting that inside the body section inside the HTML. Okay, so there are headings in HTML which have different sizes. So let me copy this H1, okay, and then paste it over. And then instead of H1, we'll change it to H2, and then you will see what's happening on the right side. Let's change the third one to H3, 4, 5, 6, and then let's do 7, and then I'll go further. So if you see until this is a heading 1, let me change these numbers to. Okay. If you see on the right side, each heading, the numbered ones are getting decreased, right? The more the numbers are getting increased, the size on the right side is getting decreased. That's just called a heading. Just like on the Word document, right? There are heading 1, heading 2. It's the same thing. So if you see on the very end heading, this is a heading 7. It's not getting any smaller than the one this is a heading 6. It's because in the HTML, we have headings only up until H6. So we have H1, H2 up to H6. And if you type in H7, it's not going to get any smaller or any bigger because the numbering is only until H6. So these are for the headings. Now, there's so many more HTML elements that you can find online. We'll go through a couple of them, but I can show you where you can find other HTML elements. Yeah, so if you come into the W3 schools, there are different types of HTML elements. Here you see it says H1, which is the heading with that we just typed, right? And then we'll go further for the P, but this is just a reference that you can use to see what kind of HTML elements there are in that we can add into the HTML element. Okay, so let's continue. Now that we have the headings, let's just try and type in the paragraph. So it will be the same way, opening brackets, P, and then you have to do the closing one, the same P, but including the slash. So P stands for a paragraph. So if you want to type a paragraph of something, you can include that inside the P. So let's say, welcome to the, and I'm just typing any text. You can type any text that you want. Welcome to the Skillspire workshop. If you see on the right side, I have the paragraph. Now, well, it does seem like a line, but if you type in more text, it will wrap it up inside the paragraph. Now, you might have a question that why the right side looks, you know, without the design or just a simple text, right? We'll go into that in the next section where we'll talk about CSS. For now, we're just exploring the HTML elements that are most used. Okay. Now, these are plain text, right? Now, let's do another thing. Let's create a table. So what we want to have is, let's have a to-do list table that will have 2 columns, and then you can keep adding the rows, right? So in order to get started with creating a table, we'll have to, you know, specify the same way that we were doing the paragraph and then the headings. Just do table, but with the opening and closing tags. Now, on the right side, you won't be able to see anything because we don't have any content in there. Now, table, just like HTML had the 2 different sections, right? It was head and body. Table also has different types of section in it. So let's start with the TR. What the TR means is, it means table row. Let me make sure I'm not muted. Okay. The table row, the TR means the table row. As again, you cannot see anything on the right side since we don't have a content yet inside it. And then there is this something called TH. Okay. And then it should be the same way, you know, opening and closing. TH, what it means is the table header, and TR means table row. So in the TH, we will include the actual, you know, the names of the columns that we want to have, right? So the way the structure will work is that we'll start with the table rows, and then we'll specify if we want to have a heading inside that row or if we want to have the actual data inside. So in order to do that, let's delete the TH for now. Let's have, let's say, 3 TRs. Just copy and paste it. Okay. So what this structure means is that we're going to end up having 3 rows. So inside the first TR, let's type in TH, which means header, right? Table header. And then we can type in, let's say, column 1. You will see on the right side that it's appearing as a bold, right? Bold text, and it says column. Let's do another TH right below that. And then we'll see what will happen. Okay. If you see on the right side, there is another header appeared on the right side. Now, why do you think it appeared on the right side? Is because we included it within the same row, right? So within the same row, we have 2 headers, one column 1 and another, let's do column 2. Okay, now let's go to the next TR, table row. We are not going to type in TH because we already have our columns, right? So we already have the headers. So what we're going to do now is, instead of typing TH, we're going to type in TD. So what TD stands for is table data. So this is the actual content that we'll have inside the table. Now, again, we have the column 1 and column 2 as the headers, right? But the TD is the actual data. So let's say task 1, and then this one, task 2. Now, you see what's happening? It's distributing those TDs between those two columns, right? Now, pay attention because this is our first row, right? That consists of two table headers, right? If we have only two columns, that means it makes sense to have only two TD inside the TR, right? Table row. So this is our TR1, right? Which consists two headers, and this is our TR2 that consists two TDs. Now, if we want to have another, another row, we can just keep adding below the TR. Now, okay, here is my third TR. Inside that, I'll add a TD. Copy this, make it 2. Task 3, and then task 4. Okay, so if you see, all my tasks got distributed inside the two columns because I'm only adding 2 TD inside the table row. So that's how you build the table. This is the most basic one, but there's more to the tables. And then let's give it a name. Maybe we can just say H1, just a simple one, and say to-do list.
What does the TD stand for?
TD stands for table data. So the actual content inside the table. And the TH stands for table header. Okay, so now we kind of created a table of to-do lists, right? Now you don't, if you want to remove the column 1 and column 2, you don't want that to be displayed. You can either just, just remove the content in between the TH. You can work around the table, but this is the most basic way of, creating a table. Now, what if I want to have it as a bullet point, right? These tasks, just like we have on our to-do list, right? On the paper, we just make a bullet points, right? To have the bullet point, there is an HTML element called list, which will be written as, let me write it outside of the table. We can come back to that. HTML element that's called list, which will be written like this, li, and then of course we'll have to have a closing tag. Do you see what the bullet point appeared in here, right? Even though I didn't type in any content inside. It's because list it stands for the actual bullet point. Let's say task 1, and then let me just copy this. And then let's have a 4 bullet points. Oops, 4. So if you see on the right side, when I use the list HTML element, all the content that I typed appeared in a bullet point. Now, what if I want to do it the same way, but inside the table, right? So, so what we'll do is wrap up the table contents inside the list element. So let's see, let's do that. Let's leave the TH the way it is because we don't want that bullet pointed, right? We only want the tasks inside it to be bullet pointed. So this task 1 that's surrounded between the TD, which is table data, we'll put a list element here. So if we wrap around task 1 inside the list, do you see what happened on the right side? In our table, let me put a breakpoint so we don't get confused between the actual lists and then the table. Okay, so this is our table, right? And we're trying to add a bullet point to our tasks. So to do that, we wrap the content inside the list element, which is wrapped around the element called TD, which is table data. So we can do the same thing and, you know, add a list to all of them. Let's do this. Copy and paste so it's faster. And then we can change the numbers. Okay, as you can see,
I have a question. What does that LI stand for? And also, would you go a little slow, please? We
yeah,
are
sure.
following you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, lists, LI stands for basically list, an HTML element. Now, let me keep this open. Let me give you guys 2 minutes until you, you know, you can try and type in the same thing on your end so that we are on the same page. Sounds good? Okay, yeah. Okay, I think we can continue. I was going through some of the comments and someone mentioned that the list is not working. Just pay attention to the slash in the closing bracket so that the same way we're doing the writing all the HTML elements, every HTML element that we're writing has to have the closing tag, which will include the slash before the name. So if you have the list, right, the opening bracket will have no slash, right? It will be the regular one. When you are doing the closing one, make sure to include the slash right before you write the list or whichever HTML element. Okay, are we not learning Python today? We are learning Python today. We divided the workshop into 3 different pieces: HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and then Python. Okay, let's move forward. Now, another thing we can do is, let's say there is an HTML element called image. So pay attention to the image. Image does not have a closing tag. And the reason why is that image is just a self-closing HTML element because a image will not have any content, right? Just like the text we have in here. List, you know, and then the table, the H1 has all the text content, right? But the image is not going to have a text content because image will just display an image, right? So let's try and display any image that we would like. So type in image as an opening bracket, an image without the closing tag. And then inside, right after image, before we close the tags, right after that, just type space and then do source, SRC. SRC stands for source. So what source will do is it will, you will tell, you will input any source from either from the web browser or from your own computer, right? To, the link for the image that you're trying to display. So let's just, to make it easy, let's just get any image from, say, cat image. Let's just go with this one. So just go into any image. Sorry, I think my internet is a bit being slow, maybe because of the Teams. Okay, so right click and then do copy image address. So what this will do is it will actually, copy the link. So let's say copy image address, and then I can just paste it in the next, in the next tab. What it did, it just downloaded it, right? So we don't want to download it. We just want to copy the image address and put it inside our pen. So image src equal to opening, in here, if you type in the link that you just copied from the image, if you scroll below, of course, the image is too big. We can play around with the CSS to make it smaller. Okay, so what the image will do is it will actually display the image on your website. So let me hold off to decreasing the size of the image because that's something that will come with the CSS. Let's continue to other HTML elements, and then we can come back to this picture, and then we can, make the size smaller. But for now, let's just have this one. And in case you're trying to copy an image from your computer, it's not going to work is because we're using an online editor, right? If you were to use, the editor that you have installed on your computer, that would work perfectly fine. For now, we're just using an example of the online pictures, just to keep it simple. Okay, just right above the image, to continue learning the different HTML elements, let's just type in the rest of them on top of the image because we're going to come back to the image to decrease its size, right? Okay, so another HTML element that's really useful that I would like to introduce is the called BR. And what BR does, if you pay attention to this one, it also is a self-closing HTML element. It does not have a closing tag, right, on the end. It's because BR stands for a break. So what it will do is if I keep putting breaks, let's say 6 breaks, right? Do you see in the right side, it added breaks between the lists that we created and then the image. So the BR stands for break. It will add breaks in the website. Okay. And then another one that I want to introduce is a horizontal line. Okay, here. Horizontal line, you can just type in HR. Again, it does not have a closing tag. It will just have an opening tag. If you type in HR, there is a line that appears right above that, right below the list. We can give more styles to it on our next session, CSS extra session, but for now, let's just keep it this way. Okay, and I will give you guys 2 minutes to catch up with me. In the meantime, I'll answer some of the questions in the comments. Okay, so around what time we'll get started on Python? We will be starting, okay, let me give you the right exact time. Okay, it will be at 12:30. Yeah, our third session will get started with Python 12:30. If anyone, would like that. 12:30 PST, sorry. Let me see. PST to anyone is in the EST time zone. Yeah, it's 3:30 EST. Yep. Yeah, I can send you the image URL that I used. Can send that in the chat. HR stands for horizontal line, HR. And the break stands for break. BR stands for break. Let me scroll up on the table so you can see that one as well.
Hey, the HR does not stand for hetero. Someone actually nicely texted me that HR stands for hetero, but you said that it's something else.
The horizontal line, HR is used for the horizontal line. That's why we keep it as simple. If you want to, make it a line in between something, you just type in HR. To keep it simple, we just, say that it's just a horizontal line in order to display a horizontal line, just type in HR.
Yeah. Why someone said that it's a horizontal? You are saying horizontal line, and some other.
Yeah.
And thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
How do we start this project? Just open the HTML.
You can start with the online editor that I sent the link for. I'm not sure if you have the access to it, but I can send that again.
Can you send it again?
Yeah, sure. I'll just send you the one that will take you right into the project without you struggling it. So this should be. If anyone finished, whatever we were talking about, you can explore the HTML elements that we have in the W3 schools and just put it inside your editor until others can catch up. I can also send a link to the reference that's helpful. Okay. Let's give another minute. Okay, so let's move forward. Another HTML, okay, I'm gonna get this right. I just want to make sure. So another thing that we can do is, create some inputs, right? So let's do it right below the horizontal line. So the way we create forms is you just type in form HTML element. Again, it will have opening and closing one, and inside we can have labels, we can have inputs. Let's try that out. Okay, let's say name, and then let's okay. So if you see inside the form, I created a label with the content name. Let's create an input. And if we scroll down, it will create an actual input text right next to the label. So inside the input, we can specify what type of input it is, right? Either it's a text or let's say it's a date, right? So inside the input, we can specify the type. So the way we specify type, right after the input, before we close the brackets, right? Just type in type equal to text. Type equal to text, and this will specify that the input that we're expecting is a text. Now let's copy this input and paste another input here, and instead of type text, let's do type date, and let's scroll down. Do you see the next input that we had is actually changed that to an automatic date picker? So that's how we specify what type of inputs that we would like. Now let's make it a little bit a little bit more visual, and have multiple labels and inputs. So for example, for the first input, we can still keep it as a name. For the next one, let's copy the first label and input and paste it in here, and just say last name, right? And then we can keep the type as text. Now, in order to bring this into different columns, the easiest thing we can do is just to put a breakpoint in here, right? That will separate the lines. And we can also, on top of the date input, we can input a label. Is, let's say, your date of birth, right? Okay, and let's put a breakpoint so it looks nicer. And this is too simple. I know for maybe this, some of you already have an experience, but we have newbies as well. Let's have them catch up with us so we can continue with a little bit more complicated stuff. Okay, so now in here, if you can see on the name, for the input, I can just type in anything, right? Then the last name the same way. I can type in my, let's say, and then for the date, we can pick a date. Now, you have the option of, for all the labels and inputs, you have the option of surrounding the labels and inputs inside the form. If you don't want to, you don't have to. If you remove the form, right, we will still end up having the labels and inputs that we just inputted there. Okay, so it's really up to you.
So what's the purpose of form?
Form. So you know how you go into websites, there's name, there's last name. Okay, what's your name? You input your email, your name, and then you click on a button that's called subscribe, right? What the form will do is when you actually click on a button, it will it will redirect you to somewhere. Right, so that's the purpose of the forms. For now, we'll just have this this way. And let's add a button. Did I answer your question on what the purpose of the form?
So it's just for like submitting it.
Yeah, submitting certain forms, yeah, to you know, if you want this form to do something, let's say when you click on a button, you know, it takes you to somewhere, or you know, it will have you to, you know, if you want the user to subscribe to something, you can use the form. Now, like I said, you don't have to have the HTML element called form. You can just start and plain with label input. It's really up to you. There are certain you know, there are certain parts where you have to use form, but for now, let's keep it this way to make it simple. And right after our last input, let's add a button. um and okay, if we scroll down, do you see this really small button that appeared right next to the input? It's not saying anything because we didn't actually input the content to the button, right? Let's just make it submit, and then you know, the button that's called submit will appear. Okay, and I just want to remind that for now we're just designing, you know, and we were just plainly exploring the HTML elements without any functionality. We'll add functionality and design to it when we will be talking about the CSS and JavaScript.
Can you quickly tell what is HR?
It's a, if you want to have a horizontal line, you just type in HR.
Okay.
Here. And let me see if I can increase the size of it. You can see that it's like a, it looks like a box. You might be able to see it on your end too. It looks like a box, but you know, when we talk about, when we will start talking about CSS, we can actually design it so it doesn't display as a box. It just displays as you know, as a simple line. We can design that later. Okay, let me keep this label and inputs open here so you guys can catch up. And you can put BRs, you know, breaks, the way you would like. It's really up to you. We're just exploring the HTML elements.
Where did the form go? You just removed it?
Yeah, I mentioned that you can you know, have these labels and inputs inside the form HTML element, just like we had earlier. Let me just type in back. It doesn't make a lot of difference right now because all we are working is the structure. So you can bring these all stuff inside the form. Okay. But you know, it's for right for this purpose, it's not necessary to have the form because we're not actually doing anything with the form. You know, we're not you know, redirecting the form to somewhere else. So it's really up to you. You can keep the form, you can remove it.
But sometimes we need to use the form. When do we use that?
When you want your inputs that you have on the form, you know, to redirect to somewhere. So for example, let's say there is a button, right? You click on it and then it will take you to a different page or something like that. If you want the form to be, you know, to redirect you to somewhere, you can utilize the form. There are, you know, different elements inside the form that you will have to specify for, you know, if you want, you know, the form to do something, maybe to redirect you to some other place.
It's
Yeah,
my understanding. Well, it's my understanding that in this coding, that if we press the button submit, then it will go to somewhere like the pop-up messages shows up, or it will go to the thank you for submitting or something. You know, that kind of a message page is what we are gonna go. So I think that we should use the form.
Yes, you are definitely you can definitely use the form, but the functionality that you're talking about, it can also be implemented inside the button. So yeah, it's like I said, it's really up to you. You can keep the form, you can decide not to, because we'll be implementing functionality on the button itself. Um, does that make sense?
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you go a little up? I want to see that first code and before form.
Sure. Okay. Let me share one more thing that will be useful. I've been following the chat. Um, bring the screen to here. Okay. I shared you a really cool website where you can have all the references, because we are not going to have time to go over all of the HTML elements. So if you see on here, I selected the HTML forms, right? HTML forms here. You can find the syntax of HTML forms more in depth. There are HTML form attributes that talks about, what are the attributes that form has, and the more importantly, HTML form elements is the things that we were just talking. We just inputted the input, right? We had the label, we had the button, right? And there are other HTML elements that you can have in here. So for, let's say, for the input, HTML input types, we only discussed about two, right? Which is text and date. Let's look at more. So here, input type, button, checkbox, date, email, file, hidden. You can have so many input types here, as it's mentioned in here, and you can play around with those. Yeah, so we talked about the date and then the text. So if you want a button to be displayed, without actually typing the button, HTML element, you can just type an input, right, and make the type button. That's also your option. But yeah, you can have this W3 schools as a reference for the not only HTML forms but everything else that you would like to explore. Okay, let's move forward. Okay, so now let's we have this image, right? That's too big, and our page looks a little bit weird. Let's make it let's make the design to look a little bit more better, and then let's decrease the size of the image. Okay, so for the image, there are different, image HTML element has different attributes. That's called width and height. Let's try and play around with those. So for the image source, let's do, so image has different attributes. Like I said, it's a source and other attributes, right? Now, in order to change, the width and the height of the image, we have to input something inside the HTML element. Let me find the best size. 1 second. Okay, so in order to give a style to anything, right, to either image or to the horizontal lines, what we do is we include internal what is it called, the internal CSS or inline CSS, right? So in this case, what we'll use is inline CSS. What that means is that we will be including the styles within the HTML element. And the way to do that is you just type in style equal, and then in here, let's type in width, right? Since we're trying to give it a width, and let's make it, I don't know, 30 pixels. Let's see what happens to our image. Do you see how it's, our image decreased drastically? Which means that with the style, we can manipulate what is the specific, image size that we would like to have. You either use pixels, you can use percentages. There are so many, there are so many size attributes that are available, pixels, percentages, and other things that you can, play around with it. Let's see what will happen if we just do percentage. Yeah, so you can play around with the numbers. Let's do 50%. Okay, now pay attention. When I did 50%, what it's doing is it's taking up half of the page of the half the page that we have right on the right side. So let's say we want to do 100%. Yeah, it took up the whole width of our browser on the right side, right? So if you type in 50%, what that basically means is that take up only 50% of the web page. Now, what is the advantage of using percentage is, let's say I want to increase this website, right? Do you see how it still keeps it within 50% of the web browser? And if I decrease it, it decreases based on the browser that I have. So that's the advantage of using percentages. Now, there is also a way to just, declare what is it that you want, in a specific size. So you don't want it to increase while you are increasing their browser. But I think that using percentages for certain things is the most convenient way, at least for now. Yeah. So. Okay. So again, when you want to give some attributes to a specific HTML element, you will have to include those within the style. Now, in here, we'll talk about this on our next session. Instead of doing it inline, we can also do it inside a CSS section in here. That's called either external styles or internal styles. In this editor, it's a little bit different because it's all built in. But the way inline CSS works is that you include that style in here. The way internal style works is you include styles right below the head. Let's say just do style. Yeah, my computer is lagging a little bit. Sorry about that. Okay, so what this does is it says that the design stuff, right? The styles that we're going to have are internal. The one that we had below is inline because we're including it within the HTML element itself. But in here, if you want to add some, designs in here within the style HTML element tag, right? This is called internal. Now, if you have it in here, let's say in a completely different section where it says CSS, that's called external because we're not including anywhere in our within our HTML tag. So that's the difference. In the next session, we can, continue, adding designs to our website within the CSS part which is called external, right? But for now, for just to test it out and to make our pictures the size that we want, we just included an inline for now. So the same way, and not only for images, right? Even for let's say the horizontal line, right? Let's try and add a style for the horizontal line and see what will happen. Say with, oops. Let me reshare my screen. For some reason, it's very slow. You guys can hear me well, right?
You were muted, but now we are okay.
Okay, yeah. For some I don't know if anyone is muting me on accidentally. I'm not sure why I'm being muted automatically. Yeah, if
I think that
he's-
it's that's what MS Teams does. Sometimes it's very frequently weirdly functions, but for another class that's been using the MS Teams, this kind of problems has never happened.
Interesting, yeah. Yeah, just let me know if, I'm trying to talk and you guys are not hearing me. Just let me know that I'm muted. Okay, I reshared my screen. I hope it's gonna be a bit faster. Um, if it's not, then I might have to restart once this section is over. This session is over, sorry. Can you guys still hear me? My browser is frozen. It's probably we have too many things going on.
No, it's still frozen on our side actually. I think that maybe or maybe
We can hear you though.
now,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, yeah, it's good that you guys can hear me, but my browser has been very slow. I'm not sure why. So style equal to, let's do 30 pixels. And let's check it out on the right side if it made any changes. Okay. 30 pixels. Oops, sorry. I should have had the colon instead of a equal sign. Okay. Do you see on the right side how my width of my horizontal line changed right in here? Right? So the same way we, included the styles to the image, we included styles to the horizontal line too. So this was just an overview of how you can manipulate the design or the way your HTML element looks. with using inline CSS. Now in the next session, we'll talk more about, you know, editing the stuff that we have on our browser, more towards the, you know, the design part, since we already covered the structure part of it, right? So, okay, when I think, let me check the timing. Quick. Okay, 10:10. I think our first session is over. I think it's time for, yes, Yasmin, are you here? Or Aldrich? I think you're taking over for the break part, right?
Hello, hi Gazal. Yep, I'm taking over for the break part. Actually, guys, I'll be sharing my screen. Wait a minute. So, workshop. Yeah, there. All right. So, hi guys. Just to give you a reminder, this is the agenda for today's workshop. So we're done with the introduction and the workshop proper. So right now there will be a break and an online poll. So guys, we'll be giving you an online poll, and I hope you answer the online poll for us. All right. So before we show something. Okay. Oh, okay.
I can't hear.
Hi guys, again. So wait a minute. I'll be setting up the poll. All right. Uh, Save. Yeah. Kenapa itong mga bagong Hi everyone, let me try again. Okay.
In the meantime, I have a question regarding the HR style with thing. I changed that from 100 pixel to 20 pixel, but on my end there is nothing changed. But you showed us that something on the above the name, the line, kind of a sectional line. The length of them should change. The mines don't change.
Yeah,
Think wrong?
did you do width column 20 pixels, or did you do width equal 20 pixels? It's an equal sign or a colon sign?
Got it. I did wrong. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Thank you so much, Gizal, for answering the question of Sumi. So right now I'll be playing a video. All right, guys. So just watch this and listen to it. Also, we've made a poll, so please answer the poll for us. Thank you so much.
Hey, everybody. My name is Martin McGovern, Coach Marty for short, and I am your student success career coach at SkillSpire. Now, what is career coaching? Career coaching is a collaborative process where you and I work together to address the strategic, tactical, and emotional aspects of the job search so that you can break into the tech world with confidence. The job search is a tough process. It involves a lot of different elements, a lot of communication, and the ability to sell your skills to a company so that they want to hire you. So, how do we do that? Well, when it comes to career coaching, we can break it down into a few different areas. The first piece is figuring out where
Hey guys, were you able to hear the music or no? Like the audio? Are you able to hear the audio? Please type one, please.
No, you guys are frequently muted.
where you're coming from and where you're going in your career. This is the strategy. In the strategy part, what we want to do is take a look backwards. What are the skills you've developed up to this point in your career? Could be communication skills, collaboration skills, any number of things that you've done in previous jobs that have set you up for success in the future. We want to take those skills and we want to build upon them. We want to communicate them to companies in a way that really resonates, that makes them go, oh, I see how that translates into what we're trying to do, and makes them want to bring you onto the team in order to help. By doing this, we can set a really strong foundation for you to take a look at the future of your career and plan things out for the next 5, 10, 15 years. Now, once you know your strategy, once you know where you're coming from, where you're going, and the value that you bring to these companies, then we want to start putting together your tactics, your job search materials. This includes your resume, cover letter, your interviewing skills, your networking skills, your ability to negotiate effectively so you can make as much money as possible in these roles. When we're doing your tactics, we're going to be really helping you out by giving you templates to use, working one-on-one, getting into your resume and doing mock interviews, and really helping you hone your communication skills. Because at the end of the day, how you communicate your value is the most important thing to finding a job. Companies are not going to be able to assume what it is that you can do, so they need to be able to talk to you and hear how your skills solve their problems. And that's really the key as to what we're getting at in the coaching space. We're trying to help you shift your mindset away from a self-focused job search into a value-focused job search, where you stop thinking about what you need and you start thinking about how your skills help the companies that you want to work for. And this brings in some sales and marketing communications things that will help you, some skills that will help you develop so that you can confidently go out into the job search, confidently go on an interview, and tell stories that answer the questions that showcase your value to these potential employers. At the end of the day, it's a value exchange, and we want to help you get there. So we've got your strategy. We know where you're coming from. We know where you're going. We understand your value, and we can communicate that to the employers that you're trying to work with. The other piece of the job search that we'll address are all of the blockers that come up as we try to do these things. Rejection is a common thing in the job search, and it can get people down. We can also run into imposter syndrome and burnout and a number of different things that happen as we're trying to put ourselves out there and really showcase this value to the companies that we're working with. So how do you manage the emotional roller coaster of the job search? How do you make sure that you're not just communicating what you need and what you bring to a company, but you're also doing it in a way that is sustainable over time? We need to be able to pace ourselves throughout this process. How do you practice self-care? How do you take time for yourself? How do you make sure that you're not going to burn out? And how do you overcome those thoughts of imposter syndrome? Because the truth is that you probably do have the skills to do the job, but it's communicating those skills that's difficult. So when we get down to it, coaching is a process. It's a collaborative process where we help you understand your strategy, your value, your tactics, and overcome any blockers that you come across throughout the job search process. Now, how do we do that at SkillSpire? Well, there's a few ways that we'll work together throughout the program. Number one, while you're in class, we'll be checking in here and there to make sure that everything is going well, that you're on track, and that you're prepared for what's going to happen after graduation when you start applying for jobs. Then we will get your materials up to date, your resume, and all the different aspects, and help you find internships and jobs that will get you started in the tech field. The other thing we'll do is we'll have group office hours, group coaching and office hours, where you can collaborate with other students, ask questions, and come together as a community to troubleshoot your job search. We have all sorts of different resources at SkillSpire where we're going to be helping you build your career and get things started in the tech space as you make this transition. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and we're here to help. Thank you for your time today, and I'll hand it back to the rest of the team.
All right, thank you so much, Martin. Also, I hope everyone has already answered the poll. Okay, so Gazal, it's your time to shine now. Thank you.
Thank you, Aldrich. Yeah, I'll share my screen back again. I hope it's going to be fast this time. I think it's really depends on the number of people we have in the Teams chat, and it's just lagging. So apologies for that. Okay. So let's continue what we started. So now we'll be implementing a little bit of a CSS on our web page. Now, as you might see on the earlier, we were doing the inline styles, right? Now let's do some external styles and add some styling. Let's say maybe change color of our of some of our texts, right? So we'll be doing that. In order to do that, you can just scroll a little bit up the CSS section part. Like I mentioned before, for the people that joined late, you can change the view of your code pen the way that it's displaying using the button right next to the green button here. You can change the view. I think I'm using the very first one. That way I can see my browser on the right and, you know, the editor on the left. Let me see. Okay. Now, the way the styling works in an external page, right, is there are different types of, let's say, selectors, right? Either class, ID, or tag. and I'll now go deep on that in a second. So in order to link the certain designs with the HTML elements, we have to give them some identity, right? For example, let's say this is a heading 1 text, right? The very first one. Let's see if we can change the color of it using the external CSS. And to do that, we need to link the external CSS with the HTML elements. So let's give it an identity, right? Like I mentioned, there are different ways of giving an HTML element identities, either by using classes or IDs, or even just using the whole tag, right? So let's see. We have, how many H1s do we have? We have 2 H1s, right? So the H1 for the to-do list, and then the H1 for this is a heading 1, right? So let's change the design based off of the tags. So these are the HTML element tags, right? H1. So we will change those based on the tags. So the way we write the CSS is just to type H1, right? Which is the tag that we have in here. And then curly brackets, and then opening and closing curly brackets. What we will have inside the curly brackets is actually which design that we are trying to change. So let's say we want to have, let's change the background color first, right? background color, and then let's just say yellow. Okay. Do you see how the background of that H1 changed? Is because we're linking in the external CSS, right? This is an H1 tag, right? So we're linking this H1 with the H1 element in the HTML part that we have. And if you see, it changed the background for two places, right? And that's because we have H1 in two places in the HTML, one for the to-do list and one for this is a heading one. So now let's add more styles, right? Let's say I want to change the color to let's say blue. Do you see how both of my H1 text color changed, right? So that's how we, manipulate the design of the HTML elements. Now, the important part is that even, if you are making a changes, right, you want to make sure to know where is it that you want to make a change, right? And here, it's obvious that we're making a change to an H1, right? Now, this is called a tag selector for the CSS, is we're directly pointing to the H1 for all the H1. Now, what if I want to I don't want to change all the H1 to one style, right? What if I want to change this heading one to have a background color of maybe green, and then this to-do list to have a background color of yellow, right? In this certain case, that when we use the tag selector, it's not possible to have a different one. That's why we have other two selectors that's called class or ID selector, where you give an identity to an HTML element so that you can, incorporate your designs with that specific identity. Now, let's start with the ID. Okay, 1 second. Okay, so in the HTML elements, right? The way we were specifying the for the input, we were specifying the type, right? It's an HTML attribute. We were specifying the style. We were specifying the SRC, right? The same way. For each HTML element, you can specify the ID or class. Let's start with an ID, and the way you specify it is just ID equal to, let's say, H1, okay? And then on the CSS part, let's give it a try to something. Okay, H1. Okay, so if you pay attention in here in the H1, I specified its own identity, right? I just gave it a name H1. And so, but be careful. This H1 is different than this one. What this first H1 is doing is just directly pointing to all the heading ones, H1's elements in the HTML. But this one, if you pay attention in the front of the H1, I have this, I don't know, they call it hashtag. I think so. Yeah, hashtag. So this specifies that we are pointing to an ID, specific ID. Now, if you see in the H1, I have ID H1, right? Or you can even name it like test. And then if you rename that test, you have to rename this one test. But the point is that you create an ID in here. If you create an ID, you have to link it to the same ID in the CSS part. Okay, so now this way we have, different styles for both, right? But again, our to-do list, right, is a background color yellow, is because we're pointing to it using the tag selectors. We can also, create, give it a ID, let's say test2, and then below the test on the CSS part, we can do hashtag test2, and then let's just change the color without the, the background color. Let's say change it to green. Yeah, do you see that I'm specifying this hashtag test2 as an ID, right, in the to-do list, test2, and I only changed color. Do you see the background color yellow still stayed because we're still implementing this H1 tag selector where it says background color yellow. Now, you see in here, H1 background color yellow and color blue. I'm changing the color to blue on the H1, right? But when I changed the color to green using the ID, it changed it to green. It didn't stay as blue. And the reason why is that ID overwrites the tag selector. So the ID selector overrides the tag selector. If you see in the tag selector, I'm specifying, hey, I want the color to be blue, but then I assigned that HTML element a specific ID, right? And I'm specifying in that ID, test2, the color green. And what it will do is it will overwrite the blue color to green color. So that's how we interact between external CSS and the HTML using the tag selectors like we did in here, H1, using the ID. And then the lastly is we'll use classes. So let's do this Welcome to Skillspire workshop. Let's change the design using the class. Okay. Okay, let's give it the class name. Let's say paragraph. Okay, let's copy this. And the way we identify if a selector is an ID or class or tag, right, is you see for the ID, we use the hashtag, right? For the classes, we'll use dot and then whatever the name of the class is. And the same way, open curly brackets. Let's say background color green. Yeah, so I am I'm giving a class name to that paragraph, Welcome to Skillspire workshop, right? And then the way I'm linking it to the CSS is by using the dot notation, dot, and then whatever the class name is. And as you can see, I changed the background color to green. And in here, as you will see on the right side, it changed the background of that paragraph to green. Excuse me, my throat. So now you might have a question, right? What is the difference between the IDs and classes? It's mostly identical. The only difference is that as it talks, as it says for itself, the ID, let's say test, you can only use on a single HTML element because ID is always identical, right? You cannot use the ID in multiple things. So that's the only difference with the class. Like you can reuse it, but for the ID, it has to be its own. So that's the only difference. But the rest of the things work exactly the same for the ID and the class. Now, let me give some time for you guys to play around with the CSS part, and I will keep this open. See if I can do. Let's change the view so you guys can view it better like this, probably. Yeah, I'll give you guys 2 minutes to catch up.
I have a question. When do we use ID and when do we use class? I think I kind of get an idea, but then well, because you taught us, but how can you tell when do we use ID and when do we use classes?
Okay, Let's do some testing. Okay, let's do some testing.
So that
Sorry, did anyone say anything? Couldn't hear it.
no, I said, can I answer that?
Yeah, you can answer. Yeah, I was just gonna give her, examples, but you can go ahead. You can answer.
Okay. Okay. So think of it this way, that whenever you work on a real-time project, right? Be it native JavaScript, React, Vue, Angular, you will have to, those are all single-page applications, right? Or say you want to uniquely identify elements in the page. So you will assign unique IDs to each element. Okay. But you will use classes mostly for styling, look and feel, and those things. But IDs you will use for processing, that is behavior. On click, what should happen, on hover, what should happen, on blur, what should happen, or capturing data, validations, etc. So assign IDs uniquely to all the elements which you want to process. Classes are mostly for the look and feel and the styles. I hope that makes sense.
I don't get it. I don't think that anyone would get it. So we don't know what you are talking about. What we want to know is that for now, for the heading, we want to define that just like a functioning, then we should use ID. But for the paragraph thing, we should use class, because class taught us. But as you mentioned, that in the real project, can I use that class? As Kajal was about to show us as an example. Well, that was my question. Can I use that at the heading for class? How about in the heading? How about in the paragraph? Can I use that ID?
Okay, so you can answer that your own question if I give you an example. Think of it this way: are you going to change anything for that ID to which you are assigning ID? Are you going to change?
No,
are you going to manipulate anything?
Instead of telling us about it, Kajal, would you
I understood what he said. Maybe you could try to Google it to see other explanations if that one doesn't make sense for you.
Yeah, I can do that. But Kajal was about to show us an example. Could you please do that?
Yeah, sure. So with the IDs and classes, it works the same. Like I mentioned, it works the same way, right? Let's say I can still assign the ID. Let's say, where is the test here? The test, right? To this ID, and it still changes, right? Because we're still linking whatever the test and then the class that we specified on the left side. Now, instead of the test, right, ID, we can still use the class. Let's say where instead of using ID equals test, we can just say class equals to paragraph. Okay, now it is implementing the class. What this means is that you can still use the ID and classes the same, like wherever you want to. It's just maybe it's a logic thing that the only difference is that it's suggested that you should use the class when you want to have same style for multiple things. So for example, you want to keep the ID identical, right? because whenever you go to a college or something, you are given an ID, right? That's only for you. And so you wouldn't want to use the same ID for different things. For example, if let's say if I if I do this ID test into the header 3, right? Now you think, okay, for this heading 1 and this heading 3, I'm using the same ID. What this means is that if I change um, that ID test, it will change both things, but I don't want to change both things. I want to change only one HTML element. So in that case, if you assign a identical ID and then design that one, you will know that that ID belongs to only one HTML element, that you cannot use it for anywhere else. Well, technically you can, but you want to keep it identical, right? But for classes, like it doesn't matter. You can apply the same class stylings to multiple places, but you want to keep the ID identical to a specific HTML element. If that makes sense. Does it make sense?
Yes, got
Okay.
the idea. I can start from there. Thank you. I can
Yeah,
dig
no.
it a little bit more after the class. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, let's continue. Sorry, I have to bring up my okay, we covered. Okay, let's make a change to the horizontal line that we were talking about, right? We did style with 30%, 30 pixels, right? Let's do it in the external CSS. Now, I want to give it an ID of, let's say, horizontal line, right? You can name it anything you want. There is no requirement. Horizontal line ID, and if I specify the H line, let me make it H line in here as well, and then we'll design it here. Now, see, our line is one full line, right? Which is by default, it equals to 100%. So if whenever I increase it or decrease it, it just gets based off of the the page, right? Now I want to change the width to, let's say, 30 pixels. I did earlier. If you see my width of the horizontal line changed, right? And it's staying the same even if I'm increasing or decreasing. Instead of 30 pixels, let's see if I can do percentage. Yeah. So you see with 30%, the more I'm increasing, the more it's increasing. So the percentage is based off of the size of your browser. So that's the main difference between percentages and then the pixel. Okay, now that we change the width, right, let's try and change the height to do 20 pixels. Okay, so horizontal line, if you remember earlier, I said that the horizontal line is looking like a box, right? So the way it works is that, let's say I want to make let's say I want to include a border none, and then the color black. Oops. Attention to my. Then let's say, okay, 1 second. Let me bring up the attributes of the HR. Okay. So let's see that I want to have border style. Okay, let's keep this away, the border style, and let's keep it with color 2 pixels. Let's make it 2 pixels. Let's see if it's going to make a change. And then for the color, let's make it 2 pixels. If I make it instead of black. And then for the height, let me make it 3 pixels. And for the width, let's make it, let's keep it as 100%. Actually, I can make it 80. Okay. So in every in every styling, right? Every ID and class and tag have the same CSS attributes, right? Width, height, background color is applicable not only for the HR, right, that we were doing. It's applicable for all things. Like for example, if you are trying to do the height or the size or the background color or just the color, right? These CSS attributes stay the same for all the things. So it's not like you can only use the background color attribute to the HR, right? You can utilize it for everything, just like we were doing it in here. Dot paragraph, we did background color in here, right? It changed the background color. The same thing we did for the horizontal line by, pointing it to the specific ID. So that's how you can manipulate. And let me see if I can find you a reference of, different attributes that that you can utilize. So you can play around on your own. Yeah, I can send you this link and you can Okay, I sent you the link. It should come if the Teams is working smooth. So this is the basic overview of the CSS selectors, right? The tag, class, and ID. Now, there is, we can make some changes to, for example, submit button, right? Let's make it. Let's make some changes to the button. For example, when we hover over the submit button, I want the color to change. So what we'll use is we'll use the pseudocode. For example, let's say we have a button in here. Where is our button? Yeah, so we have the button in here. Let's do this. You just use the tag selector, right? We have the button, and then what this will do is, well, okay, let's just do color blue and see what change it will bring. Okay, if you see my text on the button changed, right? But now what I want to do is I want to add some a little bit of functionality to it, right? For example, when I hover over it right now, it's by default, it's just highlighting to a gray, right? So we can change that. So when you do button colon hover, then okay, then let's do background color blue. Do you see button hover? I specified the background color to be blue. So every time I hover over the submit, the background color is changing. Let's make it yellow. The background color is changing to yellow now, right? So that's like a simple functionality using CSS. They call it pseudocode. However, there are other, other ones that are available too. I can find in the W3 schools and send it over to you guys. But for now, we can just focus on the hover. Let's see what else can we try and what else can we try and manipulate? Is there okay? Let me give you guys 2 minutes so you can not only play around with the stuff that I have in here, but you can check the W3 schools that you have. I'll just give you 2 minutes so you can get familiarized with it, and then we'll move towards to a little bit more complicated CSS part. Sounds good?
I have a question. I just press the submit button, then I am on the not found page.
Oh, okay. You
How
can click the back button, and then it will take you back. Because we don't have any functionality for the submit button yet, right? That's why it's just taking you to nowhere.
Thank you. Well, I didn't want to lose my coding. I was worried about it.
Yeah, no problem.
Could you show us the coding about the button? We are changing the button's background color, right? But mine does not change. I think that I did something wrong because I pressed the submit button, then not found button, and then just went back to the former page, and then I coded the background color. I added that, but it doesn't work. I'm in trouble.
Did you add the hover right after the button?
Yes, I did, but well, mine's working a little strange because on the right hand side it none of the screen, the result screen doesn't make any changes. Even I added something, like for buttons, submit button, the color I added, but it doesn't work.
Are you doing background color or just the color?
So I just added a background color blue. It doesn't work. I added the button column hover. It doesn't work. And then I added the color column blue behind the under the background color blue, but it doesn't work.
Yeah, I would suggest to, try and compare the code that I have in here with what you have. If it doesn't work, just copy the CSS and HTML part to somewhere, like a notepad, and then refresh your page and then paste it back so that maybe when you clicked on that submit button, it just did something weird. That's what be my suggestion.
Will do. Thank you.
Yeah.
Or make sure that you can copy paste your code here in chat. We can help you debug.
Okay, can you guys hear me? We can probably continue. Okay, so one last thing I want to mention about this hovering, right? Hovering over. If you pay attention, when I hover over, there's this black line, black border on the submit button, right? Which you can get rid of it using CSS. So to do that, you can basically say border. Oops. Sorry, browser is very slow. I apologize. Yeah. So what I did is border style identifies what kind of border that you would like to have in, around the submit button. Right now, what I did is I did none. There are different types of border styles that's called dash and then none and then line, which you can specify. So for example, in the submit button, there are four lines, right? The upper line, right line, bottom line, and left line. So that way, for example, when I do non-dotted. Okay, so do you see what's happening when I hover over? What I did is I specified what kind of borderline that I would like to have on my submit button. So the first thing I have is none, which is starting from the left side. Oh, sorry, from the top side. So what I have is none, and it has the no line on the top side, right? And I have dotted next. So what it has is it has dotted line on the right side and the dotted line on the bottom side and then none on the left side. So it goes top, right, bottom, left. But if you want to have all of them none, you can just specify as none, and then it will have no border style, just plain thing. So that's how you can manipulate the borders of the button, or even like other things that just have the four sides. And then yeah, there are more things to the hover that you can explore in the W3 schools. The last one I could share is maybe the cursor, and then have a pointer. And I know you might have a question on how do I know all this stuff, right? Just by typing it. You can explore it on the W3 schools. Like, it's very hard to remember each attribute, each element, and each type of value. That's why we have this W3 schools and other references to help us. But what we're doing right now is we're learning the syntax for the HTML and CSS. So now, if I do cursor pointer, just pay attention to what happens when I hover over the submit. My cursor changed from that basic mouse thing to a cursor. I don't know if you guys can see. I hope the Teams is not lagging, but that's what it does. So the same way, you can make even more changes to when you hover over your submit button, and then you can customize it the way you want. Okay, now the most fun part is the CSS is a bit, to be honest, CSS is a bit hard to, to design the designs one by one, right? The background color and everything. That's why, for example, let's say I want to have a navigation bar on top of my page, right? It would be very hard for me, both from the HTML side and then the CSS side, to make changes, right? Each line and div. So in order to avoid that, there is a cool CSS, let's say, called framework that's available for us. It's called Bootstrap. Let's say I want to include the navigation bar, right? Now bar Bootstrap, let's see. Okay. So if you come to the Bootstrap, it's really a cool reference. What it does, it shows what kind of navigation. Right now I'm only showing navigation, but there are so many other things that are there. So let's say I want to implement a navigation bar and I want to choose what kind of navigation bar I want to implement, right? If you see, scroll down, this is the example of navigation bar one that looks, right? And then there's another one that looks something different. Let's say, yeah, it looks like with a brand and with no brand, there's something is disabled. You can scroll through and find the navigation bar that works for you the best. But what we will do is let's just get the most simple, the very first one, and we will just copy the code. Bootstrap is super easy. Just copy the code and then you can change it the way you want to. But let's just copy the HTML part. And it's not going to look the same like I'm showing here for now until we add until we add styles. So let me come back here, and all the way on top where I have this is a heading, the H1, right? All the way on top, let's just paste the code that I just copied from that website. See what this will do? It's just bringing up some links and stuff, right? Which was not looking the same way that, you know, here it was showing, right? It's because the Bootstrap, so this page, right? If it lets me click. Okay, so the Bootstrap, if you pay attention, every HTML elements, like for example, the very first one, right, has a class equal to navbar expand LG, blah, 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 right? What it says is it gives a class name for a specific HTML element, right? And then there's a class name for the A2, which is an anchor tag. I can real quick talk about it in a second. So what this does is the same thing that we are doing over here in our CodePen. Do you remember how we implemented the classes in our CSS part? So think of Bootstrap as ready-to-use styles, right? So we just copy the HTML part of it, right? And it also has the classes already. Now, instead of us going and re-implementing these classes, right? For example, let's say navbar brand, right?
Could you share the link with us?
Yeah, 1 second. Yeah, I'll share that. Okay, I shared that. It should come in a second. Okay, so if you take a look at here, in the let's say this one, right? Class navbar brand. I implemented the class now. There's a class specified navbar brand. Now, what I need to do is implement it in here so it has some styles, because this is not looking the same way that we just saw on the Bootstrap page, right? So we could do like class, sorry, navbar brand, navbar brand, and then, you know, implement the styles in here, but there is no need to do that because there's already built-in styles into the Bootstrap. Now, how do we get that over here? If you come to the Bootstrap, let's say it's the Bootstrap version 4.0, right? Now let's come to on the left side, it should be in the getting started part. If you scroll down, there's a part for CSS. Okay, so go ahead and click the copy link in here from the CSS part. Okay, and then paste it over to inside the head, not inside the body, not inside the style. Let me just remove the style completely. Not inside the head, sorry, not inside the body, but inside the head, right after your title, just paste that, and I'll explain what it's doing. So what this is doing is it's saying, hey, I want to link a style sheet, meaning the CSS, the external CSS, and we're adding, the link for the built-in CSS that's already there in the Bootstrap. So what this will do is all the classes, right? For example, class navbar and the brand, everything is already implemented for us. So the only thing you need to do is just to link your HTML to that ready built, CSS in the Bootstrap.
Could you repeat
Okay.
that, please?
Sorry, what was that?
Could you repeat that again, please? What that link is doing?
Yeah. So for example, let's say let's just ignore this specific link, right? What the link?
Which one should copy from that what is that Nava to the CSS file and HTML file? Some of us did not follow that. Well,
Okay, no
because we
problem.
did not have the link for the Nava. We were just looking at what you are doing. So
No problem. Yeah, no problem. I can really quick show you. So I'll come back to the other question in a second. So if you scroll down in the nav bar, you can choose whichever navigation you would like, but for now I'm choosing this one. So what this one is saying that in order to implement this kind of navigation bar, you need to copy this HTML structure. Okay, so instead of you don't have to just select it and like that. There is a copy button on the right side, so you can just copy that, and it will copy it automatically. And come back to your pen and paste it inside your body, right above the where we just did H1. This is a heading 1, right above that, but it has to be inside the body. Okay, let me format the HTML so it looks prettier. Okay, so yeah, you just do the HTML structure, and then it might not look the same way that it's looking right now for me, but yeah, I can. I'll explain more. So another question that I got was, what is the link, right? So if you remember, we were doing CSS stuff in here, right? Now for the CodePen, right, this editor, we already have it built in. So for example, if we have all these selectors, designs and everything, when you just type that class and ID in here, it was automatically popping it up, right? But when you are using a software, your own software, your IDE online, for example, this one, I could show you real quick. Let's see, folder. This is just an example. You don't have to do it. This will require a software download. It's a bit slow. Sorry about that. Okay, so I can create a first. Okay, the way you create an HTML website, right, is just to create a file called whatever you want to name it, and it has to have an extension of HTML. So I can just show that to you real quick. Let's say first web.html. If you see, when I did that .html, it already knows that I'm trying to create a web browser. Okay, so so here I will just type in the same thing that we have on the codepen.io, right? Just to give you an example for, and then on I have the head part, and then I have the body part. When you download the software, it's way easy. You don't have to type in every single thing. It will auto-populate it for you. So let's say I have here, let me create another file called styles.css. Okay, so whatever I had in my code pen, I will just copy it over. Copy it over here. So these are my, stuff that I designed, right? And then let me copy over. I don't have to copy, I'm just showing. So for example, now I have this styles.css. What this means is that my HTML, whatever I will have in my HTML, is not going to be linked to the styles.css automatically. What I need to do is I have to manually link it first in order to these designs to get interacted with the HTML. To do that, we have to use an HTML element called link. And what this will do is, it will tell the HTML which file or which CSS file it needs to use. Now we only have one CSS file, right? So we're gonna go ahead and copy the path. I think I can just copy the path. And for the href part, I can just paste. And this is a regular path. You might have to, copy the absolute path. But long story short, link is used to tell the HTML which CSS file it needs to use. Right now, it's a bit different because we are using online editor. That's why we don't have to, specify which file the CSS is located, but because it's already built in that way. But if we are using styles from somewhere else, right? In here, in this case, we're using from the navbar and the bootstrap, right? In that case, we have to tell our HTML that that specific style sheet is located under this link. Otherwise, like if I remove this link, it will just show me something like really basic because I don't have any styles implemented for it in my CSS part. That's why I have to have my link in here.
Could you share the coding for the link part?
Yes, I can show you. So let's go to the getting started and then I can share this.
In the VS Code, you wrote as REF, right, instead of HREF.
In the VS Code, no, it's HREF. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but this I just didn't want to go with the Visual Studio Code that I was doing here because it will require time to download and everything, and I didn't want to spend time on that.
Okay,
So
if one doubt, so if you have multiple web pages, you need multiple CSS files.
And multiple HTML files.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I have right now is in here, firstweb.html. This is only one page. So if I want to have multiple pages within page, I'll have to create separate HTML files. And the same thing for styles.
Regarding this one, I think that some of us asked you about this, but if we use the VS Code or Replit or any other editor, then we need to declare that we are going to use the CSS file for styling as we just did in the head of the HTML file. Yes. But before we did this, we this editor we are using today just have three of the files that we need to for the front end coding, HTML, CSS, JS. They are all just linked automatically. Then does that mean that we don't have to declare that in the head as we just did, the link part in the heading? It's not necessary for this tool, or should we even, despite that, we should include that?
if you are using online editor like I'm using right now, you don't have to link the CSS styles that you have in here because it's automatically linked. But when you are using a software, you have to link it. Otherwise, your HTML file is not going to know where to look for it.
But
Yeah.
one more question sequentially regarding that. I just learned the same thing about the front end coding. Then they used the link with the CSS. They coded it right before, at the end of the HTML file, not in the heading.
Yes,
Right.
that's called internal CSS.
After the body and before the HTML's ending, they included it, but you included it in the heading. Is it different, or which one is the best?
Yeah, so it's a little bit different. So for example, if right now I'm using external CSS, right, in here, which means that I don't have to declare the styles anywhere in here. But if I didn't want to use the CSS and if I wanted to keep everything within HTML, then after the head part, what I would do is I would just do style. And then implement all the things that I did in here and put it inside the style in here. This is called internal CSS. Okay, I would include all the designs in here. This is called internal CSS. Now this is different. So if you are including an internal CSS or inline CSS, like we did on the HR part, right? The horizontal line. I can find it. Yeah, so we included the style equal to width colon 20 pixels, right? We did that inline. So if you do those, you don't need any link to refer to those CSS because you are doing it inside the HTML already. HTML knows where to look for. But if you are using it outside, like an external CSS, like we did in here, well, it's a different case for the CodePen IO. But if you used an external CSS, you will have to include the link. Okay, but okay, so in this one, in this case, in the CodePen.io, everything is already linked for you, the CSS JavaScript, which means that HTML will know where to look for the CSS and JavaScript because it only has one CSS and one JavaScript, right? But when we added the navigation bar in here from the Bootstrap, right, when we copied it over, it had the styles that we did not implement yet, which are coming from the Bootstrap library already. So, but the HTML doesn't know where to look for those classes, right? Because we are not pointing them inside our external CSS. That's why we had to add the link that will point to the Bootstrap library that has these classes, implementation, these class design implementations. So that's why we need a link. And if you're using a software, you'll have to, and if you're using external CSS, you'll have to add it in the link part. Okay, I hope that answers the question. Let's move forward. Otherwise, we're going to run out of time.
Thank you, crystal clear. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so utilize Bootstrap because you don't want to code everything by scratch, right? For example, not only for the navigation bar, you can even do stuff for the nav bar, for the navigation bar, for the buttons, and all the other things. I can real quick show you. I think it's components. Yeah, so okay, if you see here under the components, I have the alerts, I have the navs, navigation bars, navigation bar, I have the forms. So a lot of the styles are built into the Bootstrap. So if you don't want to, implement your own CSS, you can even copy from the Bootstrap. The only thing is that you'll have to put the link for the in order to refer to these Bootstrap styles. So this is the cool thing about Bootstrap. Okay, let's see. Now, did you notice that when we did not have the, okay, when we did not have, I think this is, okay. So when we did not have the link, let me just remove this for a second. Pay attention to the right side, how this heading 1, blah, 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 everything is changing to like really basic HTML, right? And when I paste it back, oops. When I paste it back, pay attention, my headings are changing it to completely different thing. And the question and the answer to that, if anyone is wondering why, is because here we have we had the color blue, right? For the H1, we had the color blue, but the Bootstrap CSS is doing something else. So it's doing color, I don't know, black or something. That's why it got overwritten, which means that the Bootstrap style sheet is implementing its own stuff for the H1, tag selectors. That's why, the text style, the colorings, stuff like that changed. Even the submit text changed a little bit. Okay, so let's move. Okay, let's move forward. Let's say I want to bring a change to my submit button, right? The way it looks. I'm gonna go to the Bootstrap and I'm gonna go to the buttons. Now, I see these buttons look different than what I have on my end, right? It looks very simple. So I can come in here and check it out. For example, this primary, the very first one, is implementing the class called BTN primary. So if I copy this class, right? If I copy this class and I come to the code pen and I find that button here. If I do class equal to BTN primary, do you see what happened? It implemented the styles that are coming from the Bootstrap. So it's looking exactly the same as the very first one. Now, if I want to have it look like this secondary, I just have to copy the class of it, the name of the class. So if I copy this one, and then instead of BTN primary, I'm just going to do BTN secondary, but you have to have this BTN too. And then it will change it to the gray one. So it's cool because you don't have to implement the design for the stuff that you don't need. That's already available there. The only thing you need is just a link to that Bootstrap style sheet here. Okay, I hope that makes sense.
So only one link is sufficient?
Yeah, one link for CSS is sufficient. Yeah, only one link.
No, I mean, like whatever changes you copy from Bootstrap, just that one link to Bootstrap is sufficient, right?
Yes, because this has the whole library.
Okay.
For that Bootstrap. Okay. Sounds good. Now, okay, let me see. How are we doing? Okay, we have 1 hour left for this session. We're going to jump into the JavaScript part. And JavaScript part is getting a little bit complicated. So for those who have a little bit proficiency in this stuff, now it's getting a little bit complicated. So you will have the good interaction as well. Okay, let's start with the JavaScript. Now, to start with the JavaScript, before we talk about JavaScript directly in codepen.io, what I want to do is let's just go to Google, because I want to have some page loaded. And I believe everyone is using Google browser or Edge browser, and it should look the same. If it does not, then there should be a developer tools. Like for example, if you go to Google, right, and then if you go to the more tools on the Chrome, there's something called developer tools. So what we will do is we'll just practice some of the JavaScript stuff live in there. before we actually, implement it on our CodePen.io. So, okay. So I want to start with giving a basic introduction to JavaScript. JavaScript, what it does is it adds some activity to your user interface, to your browser. For example, if in my CodePen.io, I don't have anything, like if I click the submit button, like it was happening to Sumi, I think it was taking her to somewhere else, right? And then I want to have some kind of activity on my web browser. I want to put some animation, or to put some functionality. That's why we use JavaScript for in order to implement that. Now, before we dive deep into that code, through that CodePen.io, let's explore some of the stuff that JavaScript has, right? So JavaScript is a language where you can perform a lot of the things, like you can write functionalities, you can code some mathematical expressions. Like, for example, the most basic one, let's just do 1 plus 3. I hope everyone has access to the developer tools like I'm showing in here.
I followed you from the Google website. Choose the more tools and then developer tools. Then I'm still in the welcome to Microsoft Edge develop tools page. Which one did you choose actually?
That's fine, but do you have this kind of page like I'm showing in here on the right side?
I'm on the welcoming page. Welcome to Microsoft Edge
Okay.
tools, and then learn something, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, do you guys see something called console on top?
Yes, I clicked it.
Okay, and do you see some, where you can type in stuff?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, that's all we need. So
Yeah.
like I was saying, in the JavaScript, we can do some mathematical expressions. Like, this is a simple one, 1 plus 3 equal to 4, right? Or just 4 divided by 2 is equal to 2. It's just the way that this JavaScript language works. Now, so let me introduce you to some of the keys in the JavaScript. For example, let's say I want to print my own name, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable, right? The way we create a variable is just by typing var. And let's give it a name to that variable. What it will do is that let's just say my name. Okay. And then equal to, okay, let me just not do equal to. Var my name, what we are doing is we're basically creating a variable called my name. Okay. And that creating a variable is very crucial, because if you give it a certain value to that variable name, right, we want to be able to access it later. For example, it will be better understood while I'm showing it. Var my name equal to, let's say, okay, oops, I don't need this. So I just declared var my name equal to, my name Ghazal, right? Now I want to be able to access that name using the variable name. So if I just do my name, it will show me what that variable has inside. So the my name variable has the value of, whatever name is. Okay, now so we can create another variable called my age equal to, let's say 2, right? And then if you want to type in if you want to access that my age, you can just type in my age and it will pop up 2. And we are on the console. This it's a little bit, it works a little bit different than what we will do on the Kotlin.io, but this is just for the introduction of variables and other key points in the JavaScript. Now, what if I want to, let's say I want to have an alert popped up that will show my name, right? So for that, we can use the JavaScript built-in function called alert. And if you open parentheses and close parentheses, the regular ones, and then do you see what it says? www.google.com says, and then blank, because we didn't put anything inside the alert. Now, if I want to do alert, and then let me put my name. That's weird. Oh, okay, now, okay, I had to click the okay. So when you type an alert and then type wherever you want to output in the alert, you see the alert will tell, display whatever I have inputted inside those two parentheses. Okay, let's do okay, and let's go a little bit further. Let's ask the user to input their name, and then we'll output it as an alert. So the way we will prompt the user to input a certain name, let's just say var your name, right? Var your name, and then equal to, we will prompt the user to enter their name. So enter your name. Now, before I run this, I want to wish there was a way to make it bigger, but okay. Okay, I hope you guys can see it. So let me actually clear my console so you'll be able to better see that. Okay, let's do var your name equal to prompt. What is your name? Right, so when I run this one, it will pop me up in an alert that will require me to input something inside it. So let's give it a try. Now, whatever the user will input when that input pops up, whatever the user will input will be stored in a variable called your name. Okay, so if I enter this, do you see it says, what is your name? Because I typed in that what is your name inside the parentheses, and it's prompting me to enter whatever name I have. Let's just give it a different name, John Doe, right? And then I type okay. Now it disappeared, right? Now where did that inputted name go? If I type in your name, do you see it's popping up the John Doe? Because whenever the user inputted something, right, some name, it was stored in the variable. Okay, in the variable called your name. So now let's do this. Let's do an alert and just type in your name. So what are we doing? We're trying to display an alert with your name, which will consist of what? Whatever the user inputted, right? John Doe. Okay, if you see, when I ran the alert your name, it's displaying the John whatever input that I typed. Let's do that again. You can also type it on your side. Let's do prompt again and just type in your name. Okay, and then if you do alert, we'll type in whatever I typed. You can do the same for, for the variables, for the numbers. Now, let's go a little bit further. Let's see. Let's just declare my name, right? Let's just declare my name. Let me clear the console. you can see it better. My name, so let me just type in my name. Okay. And then what I want is I want to know your name too. So prompt, what is your name? This will prompt me to enter, like whoever is using using the computer, it will prompt them to enter some name. Let's just say John again. Okay, and now I want to print both of these variables in a sense that I want to say, okay, my name is this, and then your name is whatever you entered, right? We're not hard coding your name. We're asking the user to put whatever name that they want. Now, we'll do alert. First, I'll just type in any message, right? My name is, and then I want to include my name using this variable, right? So what I will do is I will put a plus. What plus does is that I'm combining variables with the text that I want to display. So my name is plus my name, okay? Let's just run this first. Do you see it's displaying the text that I wrote in the alert, and it's also displaying the text that I have through this variable called my name. Okay, now let's do the same thing, but instead of doing my name is, we'll do your name is, and then instead of this variable, we'll just put your name. Okay, so it says your name is John because I entered John earlier, right? Now let's make it a little bit looking better. We'll do alert. We'll do alert. My name is my name plus I want to continue, right? Your name is your name. So pay attention to what I'm doing. I'm combining all the texts with the variables that I have. So what this will do is my name is, and then will display whatever that my name variable has it, which is my name, right? That I hard coded it. And then plus your name is plus your name. It's the variable that's will display whatever the user inputted. So if I enter, you see my name is, whatever I entered, and then your name is John. So that's what, that's what the variables are. Variables are used to store some values. Okay. So now let's say we want to solve like a mathematical equation, right? Let's do var x. Let's say we want to solve 2 plus 2, right? I mean, it's going to solve it already, but we want to do that using variables and we want to display that. So let's do var x equal to 2, okay? And then var y equal to 2. Now, what I want to do is alert x plus y. Now it's displaying 4, right? Now we are hard coding that 2 and for x 2 and then for y 2. What if we want to ask the user to enter the values that they want to add, right? So what we will do is instead of doing var x equal to 2, we will prompt the user to enter something, okay? Var x equal to prompt enter x. And then let's also ask, if you don't want this to be displayed right now, you can just tab shift. You can just type shift and then do enter, and it will go to the next line without it getting executed. That's a Yeah. So var y equal to prompt enter y. Okay. So after the user inputs these numbers, what I want to do is I want to do an addition for those numbers. I want to add those two numbers, right? So again, shift enter. I want to do alert x plus y. Now, you might think that, okay, let me actually just run it first. I'm doing x plus y. I'm basically trying to add two numbers, right? Alert x plus y. Enter x, I'm entering 2. Enter y, I'm entering 3. Now, if I enter 2 and 3, it has to pop up as alert showing number 5, right? But now, see what it's doing? It's displaying me 23, which is not what I want, right? Now, here comes the introduction of the data types. So what this was doing is when you prompt the user to enter a number, it's getting the number as a text, okay? So when I entered 2, it got the number as a text. The same thing for the y. When it entered y as a 3, it got that 3 as a text, not as a number. So for the text, in JavaScript, we refer to strings. And for the numbers, we refer in the JavaScript as integers, okay? So what this is doing is when I entered 2 and then I entered 3, it basically combined two texts because because when you ask the user to prompt or ask the user to enter something, it's by default getting a number in a text format. Okay, so in order to fix that, I just introduced an integer and a string, right? And there are many other data types in JavaScript than in any other language, but integer and strings are the most used ones. So what we will do now is we want to make this prompt when the user enters 2 or 3, we want that text to come as an integer. We don't want a string. Otherwise, when we try to add two numbers, it will just say 2, 3, 23, right? Which instead of 2, 3, we want that to be displayed as 5, but doing an actual addition. So to do that, we will have to convert the prompt that the user entered into an integer. So let's do this. Let's copy the above code. Let's clear the console. Let's copy this. Now, I'm going to go back. And, when I'm asking the user to prompt enter a number, I want to convert that entered number into an integer. So what I will do is there's a function in JavaScript called parse int, meaning parse integer, meaning just convert whatever string that the person entered into an integer. Okay, so if I do parse int, pay attention to the syntax. Let me see if I can make it bigger. Oh my gosh, I can make it bigger. I should have done it earlier. Okay, so var x, what I'm doing is initially I was just doing prompt enter x, right? Now, while I'm doing that, I'm also wrapping it around the parse int, which means that whatever the prompt that value is, it will be converted to an integer. And let's do the same thing with parse int, the y value. Okay, now let's give it a try. 2, 3. Now, see, it's displaying 5. It's because it's calculating or adding two actual integers, not texts. It's adding two values. Does that make sense? Let me give you guys a minute to, digest it and play around on your own.
I just have a quick question. I followed all of them, so I don't have any problem for what you just did. But one question is that different from you, I can only enter one line for each time, but you enter the 3 lines in one coding, like we programmed in some of the programming files or something. How could you do that?
Are you talking about these 3 lines that I entered right after each other?
Yes.
Yeah.
That-
So,
yes.
so
How can you?
yeah. So when you type in the first line, right, let me just copy it in here. And then instead of pressing enter, just press shift on your keyboard and then press enter. And then,
Got it.
yeah.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, no problem.
Oh, it's crystal clear. Thank you so much.
Okay, let's continue because I don't want to run out of time. Let's see. So this was a basic introduction to, the variables in the JavaScript and how it's used. Let's make it a little bit. Let's make something like a functionality where we will ask the user to enter their whatever their age is, and then we'll ask them. Do you want to calculate your age after certain years? And then we will display what will be their age after that certain years. So, so first thing is we need to prompt the user to enter their age, right? So the way we do is, like you already guys know, your age equal to, we want to make sure to automatically right now parse it into an integer, right? So we will prompt the user to enter your age. And make sure that when you are typing, we make sure that opening parentheses are matching the closing ones. For example, in here, I have 2 opening parentheses, and I have to have 2 closing parameters. Otherwise, your code is not going to run. Okay, so in here, I'll ask the user to enter their age. Next, I will ask the user after how many years they want to calculate. Let's say after is equal to parse integer. After years. I know this program might not make much sense, but we're just trying to learn, the basics. And then I want to create a variable for age after. What I'm going to do is I'm going to store the result of what, like, let's say they entered an age 25, right? And they want to see after 2 years, what will be their age, which means it's basically 25 plus whatever age years that they entered, right? So what we'll do is your age plus after years. So the age after variable will store the total result of the age that they will enter and then the after years that they will enter. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to print something, right? Alert, your age after years. Will be age after. Okay, now let me make this bigger and show you what's happening here. As I said, first one is asking the age, and whatever the user will enter, it will convert it to the integer or to a number and store it in the variable called your age. The same thing with the after years. It's asking the user to enter the number of years after they want to calculate, converting that to the number, and then storing that number in the after years variable. And then I'm creating a variable that will calculate those two. I don't have to create another variable. I could just make the calculation in here, but this is a more cleaner way. So I'm creating a variable called age after, and then I'm adding those two values that have been converted to an integer, right? So then I'm outputting the value called your age after this is a basic text, your age after, and then it's referring to the after years, meaning let's say I enter 2 in here, it will say your age after 2, and then the text years will be the final result that I have calculated in here. Let's give it a try. I hope I didn't make any spelling mistake. Your age, let's say 23 after years 5. Your age after 5 years will be 28. So this is the kind of, this is the kind of things that you can play around with the JavaScript. And this is just, to introduce you to like a basic coding, basic function coding. I hope everyone is a little bit familiarized with it now. Now, another thing I want to mention is I know that this JavaScript doesn't care much. The JavaScript language doesn't care much, but it's a good practice to add a semicolon after every line or after every line of code that you're adding. So it's a good practice. So just be aware of that. I'm sure you had a question of why I'm having this semicolon at the end. Okay, so what now we'll do is we'll switch over to the codepen.io and we'll try to add some functionality to our web page. Okay. Okay. Actually, let me give it a minute for you guys so you can take a look and play around. Okay, let's get back to, you can close out the console here. And let's get back to our codepen.io. And then can I just remove this navbar? It's really, because we have a small screen, it's really taking up a lot of space. So I'm just going to remove the navbar. Okay, I'm just going to remove this navbar because we just wanted to introduce that to you guys. Here. And I can still keep the link to the Bootstrap because I want some of the things to look cuter. Okay, so we will add some functionalities. Now, if you see here, I have the name input and then the last name input and then your date of birth, right? So what I want to do is when the person enters the name, last name, and their date of birth and presses submit, I want to do some function. I want some function to get executed upon the click of the submit button. So for that, we will need JavaScript, okay, in here. Now, before we go into the JavaScript, we need to make sure to have reference to, we need to make sure to have the reference to the each input that the user is entering, right? Otherwise, we will have hard time linking the JavaScript into that specific input. So let's do, okay. So for the, can I just comment this stuff out for a second? Because we don't need them. Okay, I just want to display the input only. Okay, so okay, so I have the 3 inputs, right? What I want to do first is I want to give them IDs. So ID equal to, let's say, first name, okay? And then I'm going to give the ID to the last name and the date of birth too. First name, last name, and then DOB. So, and you'll know the reason why I'm adding the IDs in here. Now, what I want next is to display my name, my last name, and my date of birth below here, right? Now, I have to have some kind of HTML element in there so it displays in there. So what I want is I want those names to be displayed in a paragraph. Or it could just be in a heading too. But let me just use paragraph this time. You can use a heading if you want. Okay. So let's do paragraph. And then let's do 3 paragraphs actually. And I want to give an ID to them as well. So what I will do is ID equal to first name output. If you see, I'm giving them identical names. And the reason is because I want to know, like, because if I just put this in here, and I want to have, and I want to display a last name, it doesn't make sense to have the ID as first name output. I'll just have to put last name, right? So that's where comes the difference between the IDs and classes where when to use. And then let's here do ID date out.
Why can't we use classes here instead of ID?
Yeah, but in this case, we want those to be identical, right? But you can use classes. But I would prefer ID because, you know, especially when, since I'm using right now JavaScript, I have to link those to these stuff, right? And with the class, it will work, but it's preferred to use ID because no other place will have the paragraph that will contain the first name. So that's the reason, but you can use class. Okay, so I'm not going to give any CSS stylings in here. Let me just minimize this one for now. And just, oops. In the JavaScript part, I can actually change my view so you can see it this way. Okay, so to interact the JavaScript with the HTML, we use something called DOM. It's a document object model manipulation. So just do DOM. DOM is document object model. So the reason why we need this is because JavaScript has to know, if it's what kind of an element that we're trying to retrieve, or what kind of an ID or class or whatever. That's why it's very crucial to use the document object model. So the first thing we'll do is let's create some variables. You can use var, or you can even use const. Const means constant. What the difference between variable and constant is that variable, it can be changed along the code, like the value for the variable. For example, let's say my name is Ghazal, right? And along the code, I can change the value to, let's say, John or Jake or whatever. But when I do constant, it means that it can never be changed. So that's the difference between const and variable. But both const and variable, var, are used to declare variables. So let's do const and do first name equal to. This is where the DOM comes in handy. So what we'll do is we'll always use this keyword called document dot, meaning that's referring to DOM manipulation. So document will do get element by ID. So document dot get element by ID. You can also look in the W3 schools, the different types of DOM functions or elements that the document has. It has get element by ID, get element by class, get element by tag, different kinds. Like a question that earlier was asked, why can't we use classes? If you're using classes, instead of ID, you have to have class. So document.get element by ID, and then in the parentheses, we will specify the ID from the input. So let's just do first name. So this first name will store whatever the user is inputting inside this input name, okay? Because we're linking it to the ID first name. And then let's do the same thing for the last name and date of birth. Did I make it as DOB? Yep, DOB. Okay, now I have access to the stuff that the user inputs in here, in these places, right? But I also need access to the paragraphs where I will display the values, right? So I have to create a variable for those as well. Let me first name output, last name output, and DOB output. Get element first name, and I'll explain in a second. I think it's called. So what these three variables are doing is first name output. I just declared a brand new variable called first name output equal to document.get element by ID. And then I'm linking whatever I put in here, it will get linked to here. So for example, now I have first name output ID, right? Get element by ID, first name output. And on the HTML side, on my paragraph, I have first name output. So this variable will be linked to this one, okay? And the same way this will be linked to this, and the DOB output, this variable doesn't matter, but I can change it to the thing that matters is whatever you put inside after the get element by ID. So I have to, so that gets linked to date output that's in here.
I have a doubt. Why are you using const?
You can use the variable. Earlier I explained the difference between variable, var, and const. Var, for example, if I do var first name, right, along the code, later on, I can change its value. For example, right now, maybe this first name has the name of Ghazal, right? Along the code, I can, if I used variable, I can change this to something else called John or something, right? But this, now I'm using const because I don't want my variables to be changed. So if I want to, if I'm gonna go ahead and assign some other value, let's say John, later on the code, it's gonna give me an error because I say, hey, the first name is declared as a constant. You cannot change it. That's the difference between var and const. You can use the variable because I don't think we'll be changing the first name along the code, but that was just an introduction to also you could use const if you don't want your values of your variables to be changed. Okay, so now comes the function part. So now that we have the variables, right, we need to make a function so that this stuff will be displayed in the paragraph below, right, below the submit. Now, for that, we have to create a function. The way we create function in JavaScript is just by typing function, and then you need to specify the function name. The same way we specify the variable names, first name, last name, DOB, the same way we're gonna display, we're gonna have to name it, name our function. So I can name it anything like maybe output name, or we are going to actually output everything. So we can just say display inputs. And the function can be anything you want, function name can be anything you want. So, so here, what I will do is I have the links to the input that the user is inputting, and then also where I want to display the outputs, or wherever the input was inputted, I want to display it there, right? So what I will do is this first name output is a variable, right? I'm gonna do first name output. And what this is doing is this first name output, it's referring to this first name output, which means it's referring to this, right? We're getting the element by first name output, which means it's getting linked to here, the paragraph, right? So first name output, if now, right now in the paragraph, we don't have any content, right? Let me just put the basic comment name, and then last name, and then date, right? Right now, I have name, last name, date displayed. But what I want to do is when the person does inputs on the name, last name, on the date, and when I click submit, I want this to be changed to whatever the input was. So that's why let's just not put anything inside, because I want that to display after the user inputs and submits. So to change whatever is inside the paragraph or inside an H1, right, or inside whatever, like maybe the table data, right? In order to change the content of it, you do first name output, which is this, it gets linked to this P, dot inner HTML. This is a built-in function. This is a built-in function that just displays the content of. So what we're doing is, now that we don't have anything, I want to add something to there, right? So that's why I'm using the function called inner HTML. That's already built in somewhere. We don't have that function. It's built into JavaScript or DOM, document object model manipulation, equal to, what I want to do is your name is, I want to display this first name output dot inner HTML. Your name is, and then plus, I want the name to be whatever was in the input, right? So what I will do is we have the reference to this input, right? which is first name, right? Which is stored in this variable. What I will do is just do first name dot value. So what this will do is that first name dot value is it will get the value from the input. So whenever the user inputs whatever input, it will get the value that was inputted here. Okay, let's do the same for first name. This is last name. This is date output. Inner HTML, and then your last name, your DOB or date of birth. Your date of birth. Okay, so here first name, this should be a last name. This should be, see what I have, DOB. Okay, now what I did is I just created function. Now what I have to do is I have to link this function into my button. So when I click on my button, I want that to display something. So I have my button in here, right? Submit. I have to, inside the button, just like we declare the class, right? We have to declare another attribute called onClick. So what this onClick is doing is it will say, hey, on click of this button, do something. So what is it that we want to do? We want to call this function, right? So onClick equal to whatever the name of the function, display. Let's hope, okay, display inputs. Okay, it should be working if I didn't make any mistake. Let's give it and let's hope for the best. Okay, I think it should not take me to a different page. Let me actually remove the form because I don't want it to redirect me. Otherwise, it will get redirected. Okay. Now, do you see that I added a functionality to my submit button? Now I change it to John. And then select a different date. Submit, my names are changing. So that's what the JavaScript is when you add the functionality from your JavaScript, from your JavaScript to your HTML. But to do that using JavaScript, we need to utilize the DOM. And I'll send the link for W schools. And I think this session will be recorded too, so you can rewatch it if you want to repeat that. Yeah, this page explains really well on what the DOM is and what other things that you can use. Like here we used get element by ID. You can use get element by class or by tag. I'm going to send that over to the chat. Okay. I think we're 6 minutes, 6 minutes left until we get our break. Let me make sure if I'm right or wrong. Yeah, so our workshop, the second session ends at 12:20, so we have 6 minutes left. I can keep this part open so you can make it work on your own and make it work on your end. And then at 12:30, we'll start with the Python exercises.
All right. Thank you so much, Gazal. So yeah, if you have any questions, you can actually ask right now. We have 5 minutes.
Do we build a project today?
So we will build a project using using Python, and then there are a couple of exercises that we do that will act the same way that we are doing right now. And then if we have like maybe 30 minutes, I have something. Let me see. I think it's this one. So since we learned HTML, CSS, I want to build a web page that's like looks like a resume. This looks like a resume, right? That's written on a Word or on a Word document, but actually it's written on an HTML. So using HTML and CSS. So what we will do is we will implement this kind of page using HTML and CSS. But before that, we'll have to go through Python basics, and then solve some exercises with Python with regards to Python, and then we'll switch over to that.
Are we not doing a full stack project using Python?
For full stack, we need to use Flask, which is a framework off of Python, which
Yeah.
requires download of a virtual environment, the Flask environment, Python, which would take, from last time that I taught the class, I remember it took 2 classes to get those softwares and installments going on. That's why we're just using online editors where we just utilize the Python language, HTML and CSS, and we'll link them together. But did I answer your question?
Yeah, so like I was expecting that we link Python with the front end.
Well, okay. For the Python, to link that, we need to use Flask, which will require the environment downloads. But the linking the Python with the front end is easy as long as it's as long as it's done using the Flask. But the thing is that if you know the Python basics and are able to solve the problems, then linking it with the HTML is easy as long as you have the Flask. But the hard thing is that downloading the Flask and the environments is a bit complicated. And we have newbies and then we have proficient coders, right, on the meeting. That's why it would have been hard to, we would just waste all of our time on just
Could you
downloading
some
software.
link where we can learn how to link the Flask?
Oh yes, I can.
And
Yep. I can send that to you.
even about
I
how
mean,
to make the environment. of the-
yes, I can do that. I think there's one website that's like explains really well.
Hello. Hi.
Yes.
So for me, actually, the code is not executing and displaying anything. The Java.
Okay. Did you link it correctly with the IDs and everything?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. If one letter is missing, that's not going to get executed. Like
Yes.
if one thing is, so let me do this. Let me send the JavaScript code on the chat so you guys can copy it, and then also send you guys the part that I have for the inputs and buttons, but you have to put it inside the body of an HTML, so just be careful. And also, if you have the form wrapped around the label, input, and everything buttons, it might direct you to somewhere. So I would just recommend you remove the form because we don't want it to be redirecting it to somewhere, right? We just want the button to work. So you can try removing the form too.
Yes,
Yeah.
I did that, and but still it is not giving me any output.
Yeah. Okay. I don't. I have to take a look at your code, which
Mhm.
will.
Can I share
So
this screen?
I think Aldrich, I think we are onto something, right? There's
Yeah.
something else that's
Yeah.
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 Okay.
All
You
right.
can just copy
So
the stuff from the chat and see if it's going if it's working.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
alrighty. So anyway, guys, I'm here actually to introduce you someone. So just to give you a little bit of background, this person is actually my career mentor as well. So she's actually the founder and CEO of Skillspire. So as an immigrant woman in a minority, she lived firsthand how intimidating it can be to enter the tech sector. So she created Skillspire to break down barriers that preclude women, people of color, and other unrepresented communities to enter the tech workforce. So whether you're a beginner or you're an experienced software developer, you can always upskill. So anyway, without further ado, let me introduce to you Yasmin Ali. Hi, Yasmin.
Thanks, Aldrich. Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a good time learning and enjoying with Gazelle. Gazelle is one of our very dear instructors who's been with us for almost a year. Um, I have a question for all of you. You're here because of a certain reason, right? What do you aspire to be? Say a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now. What's your aspiration? In tech, of course. If you can put that on the chat, that'd be wonderful. The question, Dahlia, is what aspirations do you have in terms of your job and in terms of getting into tech? What do you aspire for? Okay, I see full stack developer. Abu, can you tell us why? What's motivating you to become a full stack developer? Work-life balance, awesome. More experience, great. Solve problems, make life easier in my community. Lovely. Any more? I mean, you can unmute and talk as well. I think it's a little bit more easier. I think it's just the two of us that are, here. Gazelle and us on camera. I would love to see your faces. It would be fantastic to see some faces. Learning to code and reinvent myself. Yep, absolutely. Career growth and gain experience. Career pivot to a job that I can afford to live. One of the main thing, I'm not seeing one big thing that people always tell me. Starting my own tech company. Awesome. So I talk to pretty much every student that comes through Skillspire, right? And there's number one that people do tell me if they're transitioning from a different career. And there's one thing that they say, more salary. You got it, Smitha. That's probably number one that I hear. And there's one more. There's two things that I always hear. Salary is one, and there's another one. I want to take a guess. Yep, you got it, Ethan. Okay, awesome. So that's where I'll start. Are you able to see my screen? Everyone's able to see my screen? Yep. Okay, got it. So you aspire for better salary. And of course, all of us we work hard. And one of the reasons that we work hard is we want to be paid well. And job security, yes, we're in a time where a lot of these big companies are laying off. And, what are you telling me about job security right now? Yes, absolutely. Whenever there's a boom, there's a bust. And so it is a cycle of life. And we do need to understand that. If what goes down, comes down, comes down. So, excuse me, that's my daughter, sorry. Um, so, so we have, whatever said and done, still tech in the long run right now, or say 5 years from now, 10 years from now, has permeated every single industry. We just can't get away from it. For you to live in this digital economy, you do need to understand the basics of foundations of coding, or the software design or software engineering, right? I mean, we live in a world where we are completely digital. Every little thing that we do is, has gone, tech, high tech. And so there's just no way around it. And with ChatGPT, I think we're seeing this every single day. Opportunities for growth and development. I think, somebody did mention that, that you do want to grow in your career, make an impact, and for your community, for your family. So those are things that are all you aspire for. And of course, the other one that I always hear is, I want to be able to spend more time with my family, and I want it to be flexible, and I want it to be remote. So those are some of the things. So some of the challenges that I always hear from students, and we also know, you are all, I think we have a good number of people who are very basic, new to coding. And then there's a good number of people who are proficient coders, and, some are newbies. So some of the challenges that we feel every day is, the number one thing when you're trying to get into tech is a lack of technical skills and lack of education. And I do talk to a lot of people who come to this country, or here in this country, from, with a degree. I talk to people who are driving Uber for, say, 5, 6, 7 years. I talk to people who have taken a break for, say, 5, 6 years or 10 years because they want to take care of their children and family, and they want to come back. The whole tech world has changed. Where do I start? Do I need to go back and, you know, go back to a 4-year degree? That's expensive, right? And it can be done with for everyone. 4-year degrees are just not possible for everybody. It's expensive, it's time consuming. And rather you think that, hey, I have a degree from, back in the days from my country or wherever, I do have a degree. I don't want to repeat it again. So what are your options? And then lack of, bias and discrimination, whether we like it or not, there is bias and discrimination. And we talk to hiring managers all the time. You probably, so when you don't have, say, the right technical skills, or you're coming from a very non-traditional background, hiring managers do look at you different. They have that culture bias, which is definitely there. So these are some of the challenges. Lack of professional networks. You may not have the your friends, your family, your circle of friends, your community. You may not have people who are able to quickly advise you. It's like, hey, I'm coming from a healthcare background. I've touched data. What is something that I can do? But I want to be working in tech. So, trying to brainstorm with people, so those kinds of professional networks. Financial constraints, you don't have, say, 20K or 16K or 10K to be, spending money on, or your 4-year degree, or a program that takes maybe 4 or 5 months, maybe a coding boot camp that charges 15K, 16K, 20K, for instance. There may be financial constraints that you come across. And I think I really touched on cultural barriers already. Imposter syndrome. This is something not new to just people who are getting into tech, but even for people who are in the industry, or even people who have actually graduated even from computer science. When I talk to those students, they feel like, I don't know whether I can actually go in and do a good job. So Gazelle, maybe you can tell me that, is imposter syndrome real?
It is very real, yeah. I'm still experiencing though, although I'm a software engineer and I still experience that. So it's normal.
It's normal. It's normal, right? So you don't have to let that imposter syndrome stop you from getting into something that you really want to do. So these are some of the challenges. Any questions, any comments so far? Do you want to add any more challenges that maybe I haven't touched upon? Okay, well, I'll move forward. So our mission here at Skillspire is to break down these barriers, these challenges that preclude women, people of color, underrepresented communities, people who are coming from various different backgrounds, to help them. And they struggle. And I know, I talk to every single day when I'm talking to a person, they struggle to get into the sector. So it's almost as if I think the tech world has been a clique, clique meaning a bubble. And we've made it such that it's very hard to understand. And people struggle to understand is like, what is going on here? How do I keep up? How do I learn? Who do I talk to? Who can mentor me? Who can actually help me through this process? So we at Skillspire, I came to this country over 30 years ago. I studied here. I did my bachelor's, master's, and then and worked for almost 10 years and took a break for 10 years for my children. And during the 10 years, I was not doing any tech. I was mostly volunteering in education organizations and, just helping people and mentoring people. And then after 10 years, when my kids were grown up and I wanted to actually get back into the industry, it was very hard. I mean, when I left, I was making a six-figure salary. And after 10 years, even though I have a master's in computer science, when I was coming back, it was extremely hard, intimidating, overwhelming, because things had changed. And that got me thinking, it's like, gosh, if it is hard for me as a person who's been here for so long, studied here, how hard must be for people who actually come to this country looking for a better life. And that's where this whole idea of Skillspire was born. I wanted to who are coming from different backgrounds, diverse backgrounds, you can still enter. It just needs a little bit of concerted effort on your part, and you have to be very focused and consistent. And if you do that, it's absolutely possible. So you may ask me, there are plenty of coding boot camps out there. What's the difference? And I would say that our biggest difference, the number one difference that I see, is not just that we're affordable, but also the community that we've built. The community of, it's like, you ask me something, and we're ready to actually help you with resources. The professional networks, if you need to be, it's like, how do I, understand what's happening? How do I get into the sector? I'm coming from, say, a finance industry where I haven't worked with anything in tech. How can I use those transferable skills that I have and go into another place? So these are some things that I think we've built a very important community that, I think we stand out in that. The personal touch, the one-on-one, I would say more like the white glove treatment, so in talking to people and helping them across, and this whole journey, right? I mean, it's not just the 4-month program that we teach, but then even after, we definitely keep in touch with our alumni, trying to help them get across into the tech sector. But the main differences here I've listed are flexible evening and weekend classes. So if you're working a full-time job in the morning, then we have these evening and weekend classes. Live instruction, that's another huge differentiation. There are plenty of programs out there that you can absolutely go and learn. Udemy, Udacity, YouTube, plenty. But the one biggest difference is, as you can see, teachers, instructors like Gazelle spend a lot of time. They're very patient, they're knowledgeable, and they're able to give that instruction that you need. And when you run into difficulties, we have the instructor, we have a teaching assistant who's actually able to provide you with that support. Yes, this is just a 6-hour workshop. We can't accomplish and maybe debug your code at this time. But when you are working with us on a full-time, on a proper boot camp, then we absolutely will be helping you through these things. I have a question here regarding flexible timings. I work evenings and weekends at our classes during 9 to 5 too. Unfortunately, we do not offer morning classes, Ashley. We typically do evenings, and the timings are 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and this is PST, Pacific Standard Time. And then on one Saturday, which is 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. So it's typically all evenings and one weekend. We do have career support services. So we have, he will actually be talking later on. You'll hear from him directly. Martin, who would come in and then during the middle of the course, as you're going through, help you with your resume, your LinkedIn profile, and just mentoring you through, and also always sharing all the resources that are out there. There are a lot of people right now on LinkedIn, on my LinkedIn page, in fact, they keep posting jobs that are, companies that are hiring. And I actually just siphon it off to Martin, and Martin is actually, sharing it with our students. So, you're getting a bigger network, right? A professional network of people who we are exposed to. So that's huge. And in fact, I would say that having that professional network is very, 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 very important as you're going through this thing. We all know that, who is really important in companies. Yes, you apply and you think, but then if you do know somebody, then somehow your resume comes on, is on the top of the table, and it's seen and it's heard by a lot of different people. We've definitely kept our, fees affordable. So it's anywhere from 4,500 to 6,500 for a 3 or 5 month program, 3, 4, or 5 month program, depending on what you choose. As I mentioned, they're anywhere from 12 to 20 weeks and 18 hours per week. It's a combination of live instruction and lab hours. All of our instructors work in the industry, so they're bringing their experience to the classroom, which is huge. And for software engineering folks, if you finish your software engineering courses, we have a guaranteed internship. It is an unpaid internship at this time, but we do have a partnership with a company here in Seattle called PeerSoft, and we provide that guaranteed internship to them. So in fact, the founder is senior software engineering manager at Microsoft, and he has another company. And when you go under him as a mentee, really takes you on and, tries to mentor you. Of course, if you have done, say, full stack, he might be focusing more on the back end. So which means that you're getting, the entire, the system design, the software engineering lifecycle there. And I already mentioned, we have a Discord community that, we're building so that we want to keep it alive with students, alumni, so that if you need any resources, we're always there to provide that for you. Any questions so far? So just wanted to, this is probably the last slide that I have. Just wanted to give you a course overview. These are some of the courses that we do. Full stack web development. We teach the MERN stack and Python stack. We have a Python stack that's actually starting on Monday, and your instructor will be Gazelle. If you're interested, definitely reach out to us. And then we offer data analytics courses. So we have Intro to Data Analytics, which is 3 months long, and then an advanced data analytics data science course that's another 3 months. We do a couple of different, software engineering courses, Java and cloud with Java and cloud computing with AWS. We focus on the Spring Boot framework here, C#.NET with Azure Cloud, and lastly, cybersecurity. So these are some of the courses that we offer. Any questions? So that's it. Here's my contact information. Please take it down. It's yasmin@skillspire.net. And my phone number, 425-549-3453. I'll have Aldrich put that on the chat here. If you have any questions or just want to talk and say that, hey, I am coming from this background and I have no idea how to get started, but I'm really interested. Let's just talk. And I'm very open to having a conversation with you. Thank you all, and let me know if I can answer any questions.
All right, guys. So this is already your chance to ask any question. You can unmute your mic or you can chat it in the chat box.
And we will have a Q&A session towards the end, after we do the career support. So you feel free to, ask, just think about, write down your questions, and you can always ask.
Alrighty. So if there are no questions, in the chat box, you can see a poster saying a free 15-minute career counseling session with Yasmin Ali. So if you're interested, just talk about your goals, your career, how to venture into tech. Just book a free 15-minute meeting with Yasmin Ali. It's going to be through MS Teams, and you can choose the perfect time slot for you on when you are available. So also, I sent in the chat box the contact details of Yasmin, so just check it there. All right, so if there are no more questions, I guess we can get back to Gazal already. Hi, Gazal.
So one of the things that I do want to also let you all know, we have a couple of things. If you attended this workshop and you get $500 off the course if you enroll in any program. So you get that 500 off. And also, since the class is actually starting next week, and it may be too short of a time for you to make up your mind, you're welcome to actually do a 1-week trial, a free 1-week trial with us, and then decide whether this is for you or not. So yes, there is a certificate at the end. We are licensed by the Washington Training Board because we're based in Seattle. Yes, we do. And what if one is not able to finish in 12 to 20 weeks? What does that mean, Jasmine? I'd love to a little more clarity on that. So I want to leave this on the table that you have that 500 off and the 1-week trial. Some break due to travel. All of our sessions are recorded. So say, for instance, if you have to miss 1 or 2 classes, all the recordings are available to you, and you can absolutely come back and watch it. And we have a TA who would, help you catch up. Any other questions? So yeah, I mean, if anyone's interested, definitely, I think you don't lose anything by signing up for the trial. If you would like to sign up for the trial, how many sessions? Please go onto our website, and you do need to submit an application with us and just mention in there that you want to sign up for the trial, and we can absolutely get you signed up. Although I do want to let you know that you won't have access to our platform, the learning management platform that we have. We actually have a unique partnership with Educative. I'm not sure if all of you know, but then it's a fantastic platform called educative.io. we have a unique partnership with them, and we provide that as a subscription for you for 6 months. So even though the program may be 4 months, we actually give that subscription for 6 months to you. So you would have that even after the program is is done. The sessions are 6 sessions per week. So it's Monday through Thursday in the evenings, 5 to 8 p.m. Pacific time. And then on Saturday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Pacific time. So it's 5 days a week. So Ulrich can give you details as to how to sign up for the trial if anybody is interested. Ulrich, you can post that link for the application. And yeah.
All right. So again,
Thank you very
if you're
much.
interested to, try the first week, you could check in the chat box, book a free 15-minute call so that we could help you guys and, serve you on what you really need in your career. So thank you so much, Yasmin, for your time, and let's get back to you, Gazal.
Thank you. Yeah, 1 second. So let me share my screen and let's get started with the Python. Okay, so I shared the link that's called onlinepython.com. It's, I mean, if you have a choice of using any other IDE for the Python, you can feel free to use that. But I found this one, onlinepython.com. I know it has ads all over. Sorry about that. But yeah, we can use this one for practicing, for learning, and for, you know, solving some exercise challenges. Okay, so what we will do in Python is we'll go from easy to hard. So since we have 3 different types of attendees today, the newbies and then the proficient ones and then the intermediate ones, I want to start off with the basics so that they catch up to, and then I have a number of exercises, to code on the Python that I will give, and then we'll solve together, and it goes by the complicated level, the complexity level. So we'll go by that. Okay, so let's get started. Python, as you know, is a broad language that's used for a lot of the things. It's an object-oriented language as well. That's used for, full stack web developments, for data analysis, for the machine learnings, for a lot of things. So Python is very generously used nowadays in the tech industry, and it's very important to know the basics. And the thing is that I think you guys, if whoever was in the JavaScript part when I was teaching that, the logic is the same for all the languages. I don't want to say 100% the same, but I think it's 90% the same. The only difference is the syntax. So if you know one language proficiently, for example, the JavaScript, right? The HTML CSS does not consider as an actual language because they're just the markup languages. But JavaScript and then Python and Java, other languages, if you know one language proficiently, that means you can code in other languages. The only thing is you'll just have to take like maybe 2 weeks training on the syntax difference, but the logic is the same. So whoever attended my JavaScript session earlier, learning Python will be right now will be a little bit easier, because the logic is the same. It's just a matter of syntax. Okay, let's get started. So Python is simplified language. For example, if you remember from the JavaScript, when we were declaring a variable, we were just typing var and then the variable name, right? And then was just assigning something. Well, Python doesn't work like that. And also in JavaScript, we were putting a semicolon in the end, right? And Python doesn't work that way. The way you declare variables in Python is just saying name or whatever name that you want to give to the variable and just make it equal to anything that you would like. And there is no need for a semicolon. So it's more simplified way. And of course, on all the programming languages are different. But Python, I believe, is the most simplest one. So the way you declare the variables is just simply type the variable name and then the value for it. And then let's try to print out the variable, right? I mean, the value by referencing to the variable. The way we do that is just type print my name and no semicolon needed. And if you do run in here, as you can see here below, it just brings up the value. So Python is like whatever you want to tell, you can just type the same thing. For example, I don't have to just say alert or console.log or something. I'm just typing the simple word print, right? And it just prints. So that way it's a little bit simplified Python language. Okay, so let's try and ask the user to input some stuff, right? So instead of hard coding a name for my name, I want to ask the user to input their name. So we'll just do input. What is your name? So when the user inputs, so this input function will ask this input function will ask the user to input something in this console, and whatever the user input will be stored in the my name, and then we can print that name. So let's run that. As you can see here, it's still running. Unless I stop it, right? So it's waiting for me to enter a name or whatever input that I want to put. What is your name? Just say John. Do you see it typed? That print statement typed my name or the name that I entered. Let's make it a little bit complicated, just like we did on the JavaScript, and ask the user to input what is your last name, and then print that as well. Now I'll explain the way the print statement works, the inside of the parentheses. Yeah, so you see, what's your name? I asked and I entered. What's your last name? I entered, and then at the end, the print statement is printing the values. Okay, so let me let me make it clear on what goes inside the print statement. Anything or any text or any variable or any number can go inside the print statement. And the cool thing about that is that, let's say here I'm using comma,